Chapter 1456. If it's just to see Bao it's not that difficult. Yun Yang said with a smile. As long as we visualize the empire of Yutong's capital, Tiantang City, with the aid of corresponding treasures, we should be able to lock onto the current scene of Tiantong's capital and fulfill big brother and sister-in-law's wish to see their son. Not bad, not bad. This is a good idea. If we can see Bao once, it'll be enough. Supreme Earth and Supreme Water turned to look at their brothers, their faces filled with hope. Their cultivation base was already at an extremely high level, not below Yun Yang's, but when it came to wealth, they could not compare to Supreme Gold and the other heirlooms. At the very least, they could not produce the treasures that Yun Yang had mentioned. Yun Yang smiled and winked at Supreme Gold, seemingly intentionally or unintentionally. Lord Gold, who was still wondering why Yun Yang had touched on his sore spot, understood immediately and laughed. Big brother, I only know that both of you have been holding it in all these years, but it's a pity that we have no choice but to do so. Both of you can't go down to Tianxian to see your son. Aren't we the same Sai? The others also had depressed expressions on their faces. Supreme Wind said, however, if the few of us were to reappear in Yutong, it'd be too shocking. The world would be in chaos. Besides, our reunion this time is all thanks to Supreme Heaven Pavilion's opportunity. Once Yun Yang leaves the pavilion, this opportunity will end. It'll be impossible for us to go out personally. Supreme Earth said, second brother, you're exaggerating. We've been together all these years, we've taken care of each other. There's nothing I can't do. It's just that your sister-in-law misses the child. It's best if I can take a look at him, but if I can't, then it's fine. Supreme Gold said, it's probably fate. Not long ago, my father passed me a mystical arcane skill that can be used here. It's just that my cultivation base is still shallow and can't be used for too long. Perhaps I can only look after him for a while before I'll be powerless and unable to continue. Supreme Water said excitedly, as long as I can take a look, it'll be enough. Tears glistened in her eyes. Apparently, she was so excited by this pleasant surprise that she couldn't control herself. Her son, when he left home for the last time, he must have been only 5 or 6 years old. Such a young child. How did he survive all these years? How did he grow so big? Today, he was the emperor of a nation, the sovereign of the continent, overlooking the world and suppressing the 4 seas. Gujiu didn't waste any more words. He began to circulate his divine ability, and a misty ray of light immediately penetrated out. Everyone's gazes focused on it. It was a marvelous sight. The clear light pierced through the void, and no one knew where it went. After a while, a ball of light suddenly appeared and slowly rotated. Then, for some reason, it turned into a picture. Everybody looked up and saw everything clearly. It was Yutong's palace. It was the site of the empire of Yutong's capital, Tiantang City, that everyone had not seen for a long time. The scene quickly stretched, and in an instant, it had already changed to the scene of the emperor attending morning court. Supreme Earth and Supreme Water straightened their backs at the same time, staring at the screen without blinking, afraid that they would miss the slightest detail. Although the image was clearly visible, as if it could be touched with one's hand, there was no sound, which was a fly in the ointment. In spite of this, Supreme Water's tears were streaming down her cheeks, her heart pounding. Sitting on the throne, the young emperor, who was overflowing with dominance, had 3 distinct black moles on his left eyebrow. It was the unique trait of her son. In the picture, the young emperor's gaze was authoritative, his actions domineering. His every word and action was filled with an aura of a sovereign overlooking the world. As he spoke, his gaze merely swept across the room, but the heavy emperor's aura could almost be felt through the picture. The officials bowed their heads, trembling in fear. In the solemn hall, there was only one main character, one voice. That was the emperor, dictating everything, the sole ruler of the world. Supreme Water stared unblinkingly at the picture, at the emperor on the other side. She covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. Those were tears of joy, tears of a mother's pride and happiness. Finally, she could not hold it in any longer, leaning against Supreme Earth and sobbing softly. Even as she sobbed, her gaze was glued to the young emperor's face in the picture. At this moment, the young emperor seemed to be enraged, reprimanding something loudly. He held a memorial in his hand, pointing and shouting before slamming it on the table abruptly. Immediately, an official was seen kneeling down, kowtowing like he was pounding garlic as he pleaded. Then, a golden palace guard came over and dragged the official out. Supreme Gold's face was pale as he said, "This young brother's cultivation base is shallow. I really can't take it anymore." Supreme Earth and Supreme Water did not say a word, still staring at the young emperor's face in the picture. They looked at him longingly, sighing softly. "Take it," Supreme Earth said. Just as he uttered a word, Supreme Gold's face turned unusually pale, and the picture disappeared. Supreme Wood, who was beside him, seemed to be prepared. He grabbed a bunch of medicinal pills and tossed them into Supreme Gold's mouth, focusing on recuperating. Supreme Earth's expression was rather blank, while Supreme Water's face was covered in tears. Yun Zuiyu and Yurulon comforted her from the side. "Don't be sad, sister-in-law. The child is so promising, becoming the emperor that unites Tianxian throughout the ages, the legend of the emperor. Just look at his domineering aura and imperial demeanor. It's something to be congratulated and comforted. We can't wait to be envious." "Why is sister-in-law crying?" That's right. I'm not crying. I'm happy." Supreme Water was sobbing as she wiped her tears. She said she was crying tears of joy, but no one knew that the motherly heart was actually grieving for not being able to see her beloved son again. For a moment, everyone present was quiet, or at least they appeared to be quiet. The young emperor in the picture made everyone feel emotional. Wise and mighty, domineering and unparalleled, he controlled the universe with ease. This was indeed the aura of a peerless overlord, genuine and genuine. This was the original intention of the 9 Supremes. However, Bauer, a child who had been placed in a remote village since he was young, how did he train to where he was today? Everyone's gaze was focused on Yun Yang. No one was around then, only Yun Yang was there. He was the only one who cared about the child, who had brought him out, trained him, fought for the throne, and protected the child in the face of countless open and hidden attacks. Yet, how much hard work had he gone through to get to where he was today? The immense effort, the level of mental and physical exertion, the meticulous planning, it was something that no one could imagine. Furthermore, Yun Yang did not have his current formidable cultivation base or pinnacle combat power back then. He had only been in an unusually dangerous situation. His brothers had all died in battle. The enemy was strange and unbeatable. He had to seek revenge, protect his family and country, go to the battlefield, go against the martial world forces in the dark, and take care of the child that his eldest brother did not entrust to him, but he had to do so. All of these had been completed in a few short years. Thinking about it, everyone could not help but suck in a sharp breath. How did Yin Yang do it? Supreme Earth and Supreme Water exchanged a look and stood up at the same time, raising their goblets. Supreme Water spoke. "Ninth brother, your eldest brother, and I won't say anything more. We're brothers, ninth brother." She could not continue, her face flushed with excitement. Pulling her husband's hand, she raised her goblet and downed it. Yin Yang stood up hurriedly and downed the wine in his cup with a half bow. He said respectfully, "Fourth sister, please don't put all the credit on me. The others have also contributed greatly. Bauer being able to reach where he is today is mostly because he was born to be an emperor. All of you have seen it just now. There are some things that can't be cultivated just by nurturing." Supreme Earth and Supreme Water looked at each other and smiled, not refuting what he had said. How could they not know that? Yin Yang's words were reasonable, but if it were not for his help, so what if he was an emperor? Even though the brothers did not have to talk about it, they had to remember it in their hearts. The others stood up as well. Gujio said, "Xiaojio, we would like to toast you as well. This cup is what you should drink. No one is more qualified than you to enjoy this toast." Supreme Gold, Supreme Flame, Supreme Wind, Supreme Thunder and the rest raised their goblets and drained them in one go. Their gazes on Yin Yang were filled with praise and comfort. If it were anyone else sitting in Yin Yang's position, they would not dare to boast that they could do better than him. After his brothers left, Yin Yang had fought alone. To be able to get to where he was now was already an answer sheet that was even more perfect than perfection. Yin-yang chuckled bitterly. The change had come too fast and too ruthlessly. He had persevered and walked step by step to where he was today, because he did not have a long-term plan. It was more because he did not want to give up. He did not want all his brother's efforts to go down the drain. He had decided to take things one step at a time. Everything before him was perfect in everyone's eyes. But when he thought about how Bauer's current situation had long deviated from the trajectory he had originally planned, Yin-Yang's heart raced. After some thought, Yin-Yang said, "Speaking of Bauer, this child, he is indeed born to be an emperor. If His Majesty the old emperor hadn't recognized this, he wouldn't have kept him by his side so early. Being the crown prince is an innate gift, not one that can be taught by a later generation. He has his own understanding of the art of being an emperor, the art of trickery, the art of balance, and even the art of darkness. Now that he has become the emperor of the Empire of Yutong, this young brother is naturally happy. However, the only flaw is that Bauer's desire for power and control is a little too strong." He looked at Supreme Earth sincerely and said, "This young brother really doesn't dare to claim credit for not teaching the child well. I can only feel ashamed." Supreme Earth laughed and said, "Xiaojiu, do you think I don't know what you're worried about? The art of being an emperor is a compulsory course for the successor of the royal family. Wasn't your big brother also the crown prince back then? Although it was only a glimpse just now, the old faces in the imperial court were all gone, replaced by new and unfamiliar faces. This has already explained a lot. Bauer's domineering aura, overbearing yet lacking in the way of an emperor. It only proves that my hunch is correct." He stopped laughing and sucked in a soft breath, saying, "Xiaojiu, we're brothers. I understand your character, and I know the personality of the descendant you're looking forward to. However, there's a saying that goes well: the children and grandchildren have their own blessings. It's Bauer's luck and destiny that he can come this far and control the world. We're very satisfied. No matter how he is or what his future will be like as his uncle, you've already done too much to pave the way for him. From now on, even if that child causes the wrath of the heavens and the people, or if he acts perversely and cruelly, it's the path he's chosen. In the Tianxin continent, the world is united and the seas are at peace. It's the best that this world is guarded by an emperor throughout the ages, but it's really only our ideal. The reality is different. It's all fate and destiny." Supreme Earth laughed heartily and said, "Xiaojiu, as your elder brother, I'd like to thank you once again. I can't say anything else. Your sister-in-law and I are already satisfied to be able to take a look at this scene today. We have no more regrets. We can't see the child's future, and we won't interfere." Yin-Yang heaved a sigh of relief. "Big brother, it's great that you can think this way." Supreme Water wiped away her tears and said, "This child, when he was young, your big brother said that he's a little cold by nature and has a strong desire to control. We understand the unfinished meaning in your words." She rubbed her eyes and said, "Because both of us aren't always by the child's side. He's been willful since he was young. In addition, there's no one to control him. This willfulness is even more severe. His possessiveness and desire to control are extremely strong. I still remember that time when I brought back a few toys and said that I'd share them with the children in the village tomorrow. Bauer picked one first. However, he woke up in the middle of the night and smashed the rest. Your big brother and I beat the child up, but we didn't pursue the matter further. Since then, we didn't have many chances to meet each other. However, the child's nature was on full display. It's said that he grows old when he's 3 years old. The old saying isn't a lie. Now that I think about it, it was right and wrong for us to hide him in the mountain village that day. Keeping him hidden all year round was out of consideration for his safety, but we neglected that when he came out of the mountain village, he had already developed a sense of inferiority and sensitivity. Even after he became the emperor, he still had it. Therefore, he didn't allow other voices in the imperial court and officials he couldn't control. He didn't allow anyone in the imperial court who could reprimand him or obstruct him at any time. I've thought of this when I saw the scene. I only hope that the bosses didn't die because of him." Supreme Water said softly, "This is all Bauer's fault. If he really did kill the bosses, then we husband and wife will definitely give them an explanation. Yin shook his head and said, the bosses aren't dead. I've arranged a very safe place for them to spend their remaining years in peace. You don't have to worry about this. As he spoke, he gave a detailed explanation of his arrangements. Supreme Earth and Supreme Water heaved a long sigh of relief after listening to him. That's good, that's good. Their children would have their own blessings. Seeing Bao and knowing of Yin Yang's arrangements, Supreme Earth and Supreme Water finally felt relieved and were in high spirits again. Brothers, where have you been all this time? Yin Yang began to ask. We've been roaming around in the boss realm. We haven't gone anywhere during this period of time. Of course, we've gone to other realms to train occasionally. Gujiu coughed. Boss realm? Yin Yang looked at Supreme Earth. Not the boss Supreme Earth. We're talking about the other boss. Gujiu said. Wait for you cough cough. Wait for you to break through the starry sky and see your true nature. Then, you'll be able to see this boss. To be honest, you're actually this boss's cousin. Chapter 1457. Biological cousin? Are you serious about it? Yin Yang was taken aback, immediately recalling his mysterious aunt, as his imagination ran wild. My aunt's son? Cough cough. Supreme Mu's face was pained as he said, Little Nine, you have to hurry up. I know it's unreasonable for us to ask you like this. You've already worked very hard, and your progress is faster than anyone else's. If it were any of us, we wouldn't be able to do better than you. But it's been during this time that boss thinks our progress is too slow. Every time we see him, he'll beat us up. Even second brother is beaten until his face is covered in dirt, fat and swollen. We can only place our hopes on you. We hope that you'll master your skills and avenge us. Yin Yang was stunned again. That boss beat all of you? Why? Based on what? After a pause, he asked in surprise. Could it be that so many of you couldn't defeat him even if you joined hands? Everyone nodded with a troubled expression. Our new boss only left Supreme Earth, and his wife some face. He didn't really go all out, but the few of us were crippled every time. Tanjio complained as he lifted Supreme Flame's clothes. Look at your fifth brother. Boss heard that Rui Huahua isn't afraid of fire, so he caught him as an experiment and threw him into the starry flame. He almost burned Rui Huahua to ashes. Yun Yang looked over and saw that there was indeed a large burn mark on Supreme Flame's back, almost taking up his entire back. Yun Zuiyu snorted and said, Just talking about it pisses me off. If I hadn't arrived in time and fought with your boss without a care for my reputation, your poor fifth brother would have been burned to the core before he was released. That's too cruel. These brothers of yours are even worse. None of them pleaded for mercy. Yun Zuiyu was full of resentment as she spoke of this. We can't do anything about it. Ji Lingfeng pursed his lips and said, Boss hates it when people call him by his pet name. Not only did your husband call him that day, he didn't stop. The first and second time, boss tolerated it for your sake, but this fellow got addicted to it the entire night. Whenever he talks to boss, he calls him by his pet name. I'd be surprised if boss didn't flip out. Did he change his mind? Ha ha ha. Everyone guffawed. Supreme Earth and Supreme Water smiled as well. He exchanged a glance with the Lightning Seigneur. Speaking of which, the three of them did not show it on their faces, but they all felt powerless in their hearts. When they weren't with the big brother, the brothers were happy and harmonious. They were a family without any barriers. However, as long as they interacted with their boss, the three of them could immediately feel that something was amiss. Gujiu discussed with him Rui Huahua, Ji Lingfeng Xiexia, and the others. They are all one with that boss. It was an inseparable whole, so naturally, there was an element of exclusion. No matter what, outsiders would not be able to blend in. Even the three of them were no exception. It was a kind of ultimate tacit understanding that had been cultivated over a long period of time, or even millions of years. They could chat and laugh with him, talking about anything and everything. However, he would always have a feeling in his heart that he was thousands of miles away from that group. But this kind of thing was absolutely impossible to say out loud. After a bout of laughter, the group began to eat quietly and talk about their encounters. Naturally, Yin Yang was the one who spoke the most. Even when he did not want to speak, the others would continue to ask questions, as if they were trying to make up for the few years they had not seen each other. Coincidentally, Ji Lingfeng asked in his drunken state, "Yin Yang, you and my sister. How far have you come?" It would have been better if he had not mentioned it. Once he did, Yin Yang was depressed. "Eighth brother, can you not mention this? My chest hurts when I mention it." Yin Yang raised his cup and drank, drowning his sorrows. Tell us quickly. Let us be happy." The brothers were interested to see Yin Yang like this. "Don't mention it," Yin Yang said with a pained expression. "I don't know what kind of restriction your father has cast on Lingxi. I'm already at the level of a saint now, but I still can't even touch it. Even when I accidentally touch it, there's a flash of white light that beats me half to death. Finding a wife in your family is simply the greatest misfortune of 8 lifetimes. Normally, when people look for a wife, they would at most ask for more betrothal gifts. What you are doing is basically buying people's lives. This is only me. If it was someone else, even if they had 100 lives, it would still not be enough to kill them." Yin Yang held his wine cup and said in melancholy, "She's my wife. All the procedures have been completed, but I still can't touch her. What do you think this is?" "Ha ha ha ha." The brothers pounded on the table and guffawed. They were overjoyed and happy. Ji Lingfeng was stunned, holding his wine cup. After a while he stuttered, You still want to touch her? I'll beat you to death." Having said that, he could no longer keep a straight face as he burst out laughing, clutching his stomach. Supreme Blood held his stomach with one hand and hugged Yin Yang's shoulder with the other, saying, "Keep it up, brother. You'll get what you want one day. Keep it up, keep it up." He guffawed after that. After a while he said, "When his cultivation base surpasses Uncle G, it should be enough, ha ha ha." The brothers looked at him sympathetically. Yin Yang snorted and said, "Is it difficult to surpass his cultivation base?" "It shouldn't be." The group said in unison, "It's not. It's not. It's not difficult at all." Following that, the entire hall burst into laughter. "Based on your current cultivation progress, you'll have at most another 18,000 years, that's about it." Gujiu held back his laughter and said, "If your father-in-law is lazy during this period of time and doesn't make any progress at all." Yin Yang's eyes widened when he heard that, feeling deflated. "Doesn't that mean that I have a wife, and I have to be a bachelor for the rest of my life?" Yin Yang had never expected that the reunion that was supposed to be a joyous occasion, a joyous and exhilarating event, would end in utter gloom in the end. However, Yin Yang still felt a heartfelt reluctance when they parted. "When will all of you come to see me again?" "It shouldn't be too long. This still depends on you." Gujiu patted Yin Yang's shoulder and said, "Work hard on your cultivation base. The faster your cultivation base improves, the nearer the day we meet again. Work hard, young man." The brothers stood in a row, watching Yin Yang leave. Yin Yang stood on the opposite side. He knew that he had to leave, but he could not bear to leave just like that. For so many years, he had yearned for this day to come. Now that such a day had really come, he was even more reluctant to part ways. The brothers' mood was obviously heavy as well, but no one showed it on their faces. The walls of Supreme Heaven Pavilion turned from solid to illusory, about to disappear. Xia suddenly flashed to Yin Yang's side, speaking quickly. "Remember, don't be too ruthless." Before Yin Yang could understand what he meant, he felt the world spinning around him, and his mind becoming muddled. Suddenly, a dazzling white light flashed. Then he floated into the air, his eyes filled with white clouds and blue sky. Supreme Earth, Gold Venerable, and the others had long disappeared. Yin Yang, who had left Supreme Heaven Pavilion and returned to the bound of universe, was at ease. He regained his composure in an instant as he spun in the air and descended, following the wind and clouds. The vast sky seemed to have become a playground for him alone. There was no other reason for Yin Yang's loss of composure. He was simply too happy. Once his dream came true, the knot in his heart was gone and his state of mind was no longer clouded. His cultivation base and ability had improved tremendously once again. Yin Yang even wanted to sing a song to express his joy. The remaining demonic seal on Yin Yang had been broken. He could now use all the divine powers that had been difficult for him to use freely as he pleased. Whether it was summoning the wind and clouds, or finding thunder and lightning, everything was as he wished. How could he not be ecstatic to be able to transform into the wind and clouds, and soar through the 9 heavens after a long time? With a sweep of his divine sense, Yin-Yang saw half of the bound of universe. Should I capture Dongfang Haoren and the other 2 old fellows and beat them up? Yin-Yang suddenly had this strange idea. It was probably because he had been extorted too much by these fellows previously. Supreme Yin had always repaid kindness with kindness and enmity with vengeance. A gentleman's revenge was never too late. He then thought, this lowly one's revenge is from morning till night. Should I take my revenge without restraint? Thinking about it, Yin-Yang eventually gave up on this tempting idea that would make him feel so happy. I'll think about it later. I'll think about it when I'm sure I can bully you all. Yin-Yang still felt that it was not very safe. Even though his ability had improved a lot after this trip to the Supreme Heaven Pavilion, Yin-Yang was confident that he could kill any one of the 3 rulers, if it was a battle of life and death, without the risk of dying himself. However, when it came to sparring, Yin-Yang was not very confident. Putting aside the profound cultivation base that these old men had accumulated over the years, their cunning and shamelessness alone would definitely allow them to fight 3 against 1. They would even be able to do it easily and effortlessly. If Yin-Yang really wanted to flaunt his prowess, he would probably be suppressed by the 3 old fellows together. Not only that, he would also be extorted for a lot of good stuff. After all, Yin-Yang's chi of vitality was a supreme treasure of creation. It was not enough for the 3 old fellows, no matter how much he had. Although Yin-Yang had gained a lot from this trip to the Supreme Heaven Pavilion and reunited with his brothers, he was overjoyed and proud. After a period of exhilaration, he gradually calmed himself down and transformed into an ordinary scholar, heading towards the Palace of 9 Supremes. The bound of universe's martial world was still chaotic. Battles were still happening everywhere, but these were not worth mentioning in Yin-Yang's eyes. After all, compared to the martial world he had imagined, this was much more orderly. It could even be said that the martial world of the bound of universe was much more orderly than the martial world of Tianxian continent. In an orderly Jianghu, even if countless practitioners have the ability to destroy mountains and break seas, they rarely abuse their power. This is a great blessing. Yin-Yang smiled inwardly. As his cultivation base increased and his horizons widened, he was more and more impressed by the Almighty Being who had created the bound of universe. As the saying went, the imperial court had laws, the martial world had its principles. It was easy to formulate and even promote the imperial court's laws. After all, they were dealing with ordinary people, and the state was usually successful in this aspect. However, when it came to the principles of the martial world, it was extremely difficult to make all the martial world people follow the conventions. However, this Almighty Being did not care about this. He did not care about anything, he just cut off the root of the problem. There was no need to explain his iron-fisted methods. If he said no, then no. When one's ability has reached such a level, there's indeed no need for reason. This is what it means to have a bigger fist in reason. Yin-Yang thought to himself. Occasionally, he would look at the changes in his meridians and mystical chi. It was like a dazzling galaxy, a myriad of phenomena. It was no longer in the form of strands of chi in the past, but more like glowing stars that were connected in his meridians. Perhaps this is the true meaning of the saying that the human body forms its own universe. As long as I continue to develop and evolve it step by step, it won't be a rare thing when I form my own heaven and earth. Yin-Yang did not move very quickly. He wanted to look at the world from a third party's point of view, so he strolled leisurely. At the same time, he was thinking about his own matters, combing through his gains during this period of time. Along the way, he had met many disciples of the Palace of 9 Supremes. Each of them was in high spirits, dressed in fresh clothes and galloping on horses. Why are there so many disciples of the Palace of 9 Supremes in the martial world now? Yin-Yang extended his deific consciousness and could not help being astonished. I've actually stayed in the Supreme Heaven Pavilion for more than a year and a half. No wonder my state of mind has changed. Forget it. I'd better hurry back and take a look first. The bound of universe seemed peaceful, but in fact, there were turbulent waves hidden within this tranquility. The Blood Soul Mountain was the ultimate battle against the demon race. This battle had been announced to the entire bound of universe, and the pre-war mobilization had begun. The decisive battle between the human race and the demon race was a battle of destiny. The winner would occupy the bound of universe. The loser would become food or prey. The survival of the fittest, the severe consequences of survival and death, weighed heavily on the hearts of the ordinary people in the bound of universe. The consequences of losing the battle were unimaginable. Countless martial artists in the martial world responded to the call and marched towards the Blood Soul Mountain. The people from all directions were like rivers flowing into the sea. Those whose cultivation base is below the saint level don't join in the fun. You'll just die in vain if you go. You're not even cannon fodder. The war between the two realms is about to begin. This is a battle of life and death. If we lose this war, the human race will die without a burial ground. This is a battle of race survival. How can we not give it our all? The entire bound of universe was filled with such slogans. Countless people were talking about it. Some were worried, some were in high spirits, and some were uneasy. Overall, the pre-war mobilization of the three heavenly palaces was quite successful. Yin Yang looked at the Blood Soul Mountain's entrance from afar, only to see a cloud of blood qi rising and clamoring. The demon race is also making the best use of their time to prepare for the war. I wonder how the two elder brothers, the Fox Emperor and the Cat Emperor, are doing. Yin Yang moved and disappeared from where he was. The Palace of Nine Supremes sent out a summons. All disciples who were outside were summoned back to the mountain. Other than those who were stationed at the Blood Soul Mountain, the rest had to return to the sect within a month. During this period of time, due to the cultivation of the many spiritual herbs gifted by the deities, the first round of profits had been achieved. It was not an exaggeration to say that the medicinal pills refined by Emmy were plentiful. There were piles and piles of them everywhere. Yin Yang naturally wanted to use them to improve the sect's ability. This time, not only the disciples of the Palace of Nine Supremes, he had also informed Dongfang Haoren and the others. He had prepared a generous gift for each of them. The war is about to break out. The Palace of Nine Supremes is giving the men of the bound of universe a boost with mere medicinal pills. Yin Yang had also sent some to the other sects, such as the Sacred Heart Palace and the Sacred Soul Palace. These are the medicinal pills from the Supreme Heaven Pavilion, and the quantity is not small. Why don't we share some of them, so that the higher-ups can be stronger and have a higher chance of winning the war in the future? This was Yin Yang's excuse. An entire warehouse of medicinal pills had been distributed. The crowd's morale soared and their morale soared. Only Qian Duoduo and Gu Chaoyang could not speak, their hearts aching so much that they were bleeding. Medicinal pills had always been the highest quality item in the bound of universe's trading market. What was more, the ones that Yin Yang had given out were all supreme-grade medicinal pills that could increase one's cultivation base, nourish one's spirit, revive one's soul, and prolong one's life. Such medicinal pills could no longer be measured by money. They were resources that could supply a super force like the Palace of Nine Supremes for 10,000 years. Just like that, they were sent out by the sect leader with a wave of his hand. Gone. As for the excuse, no matter how impassioned and passionate he was, it was still just an excuse. Of course, Dongfang Haoren and the others understood very well that Yin Yang was implying that he would only do this once and not again. No matter how much you need them in the future, I won't take them out. After you take these resources back, how to distribute them, and what to say to your subordinates is all your business. It has nothing to do with me, and I shall not be dragged into this matter. This batch of supreme-grade medicinal pills is a timely help. Please be careful when you use them, don't waste them. The others nodded solemnly. Then, they turned into streams of light and disappeared before Yin Yang's eyes. Under the watchful eyes of Ji Lingxi and the others, Yin Yang waved his hand. The Palace of Nine Supremes resource warehouse was suddenly filled with weapons, each of them a mystical weapon. For a moment, The room was filled with radiant colors. Disciples with a cultivation base of Saint Lord and above, one for each of you. Qian Duo exclaimed in shock, almost fainting. It was not that he had never seen mystical weapons before. From the residence of 9 Supremes to the palace of 9 Supremes, any mystical weapon that was bestowed had to go through Majordomo Qian's eyes first. In other words, in the entire palace of 9 Supremes, there was no one else but Majordomo Qian who had seen the most mystical weapons. Even so, Qian Duo was still in disbelief when he saw so many mystical weapons in front of him. This time boss was really too generous. He was generous to outsiders, and even more so to his own family. However, the main reason that surprised Qian Duo was that he knew Yun Yang very well. If Yun Yang had been a miser, Qian Duo would have thought that it was appropriate. But when a miser suddenly tossed out all his treasures, something big must have happened. Boss, what are you doing? Qian Duo asked, trembling. Nothing. Yun Yang smiled. Little fatty, just do what you need to do. You don't have to worry about anything else. Before his words echoed in the air, he had already left, dragging Shengguan Lingxiu and Ji Lingxi with him. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxi could not help chuckling when they saw little fatty's dispirited expression. Perhaps only the two of them knew what Yun Yang was thinking. Yun Yang's move was to add the last layer of foundation to the palace of 9 Supremes. After this war, Yun Yang would probably leave this world, and the two of them would definitely follow him. By then, the palace of 9 Supremes would be the legacy that Yun Yang would leave in this world, passing down the torch. Naturally, he had to plan for its continuation. Yun Yang, your ability should be close to the level of saint perfection now, right? Ji Lingxi said. If you win this war, your cultivation base will go up another level and surpass the pinnacle of this world. By then, this world won't be able to contain you and me anymore. Just like when we were in Tianxian continent. However, don't forget something. You have to complete it before you leave. What is it? Yun Yang asked in surprise. Yun Yang had always prided himself on being able to foresee everything. But he did not expect to be reminded by the person beside him today that he had forgotten something. How could he not be surprised? About Duga Chou. Ji Lingxi said. Duga Chou helped you back then because he was persuaded by Ling Xiaozue. Half of it was because of his deceased wife. Do you think there's any way to solve this? Yun Yang was stunned. Duga Chou. He had long been a guest in heaven, half a step into the ethereal realm. But for the sake of his lover, he was too late. Duga Chou. When his wife had passed away from illness, he had used Tianxian continent's 10,000-year-old mystical ice jade as the material to make a coffin. His obsession had not changed for decades. All he wanted was to be in love with his wife until their hair turned white. But he could not do it. His greatest wish in life was to resurrect his wife. Duga Chou. Yun Yang frowned and said, even for me today, it's still beyond my power to bring the dead back to life. However, it's not like I can't find another way. There's only one thing that I can't do. Does he still have his wife's soul? If he does, there might be a turning point in this matter. Ji Lingxi smiled and said, you don't have to worry about this. He's much more attentive than you are. Although the long years of wear and tear on the Tianxian continent had caused much of his wife's soul to dissipate, you gave him the ethereal amethyst before your ascension. He did not use it on himself, but turned it into a vessel to store his wife's soul instead. Actually, it's not just the soul. Even his wife's body is well preserved. It's in the mystical ice jade coffin, vivid and lifelike, just like when she was alive. Actually, Duga Chou used the mystical ice jade to preserve a sliver of his wife's life force in her body back then. However, after so many years, the life force is long gone, leaving only her soul behind. Shengguan Lingxiu added. Cough. Yin Yang waved his hands and said, I won't lie to you. His wife's physical body can't be used anymore. Ask Duga Chou to come, let me give it a try. How can I break the promise I made back then? If it had been before the Supreme Heaven Pavilion, Yun Yang would not have been able to do it even if he had attained the ability of a saint. However, after this encounter at the Supreme Heaven Pavilion, it was a different story. Even if Yun Yang still could not do it, his best ally, the concourse of the underworld, would be able to take care of this matter. After a year and a half, the concourse of the underworld had basically perfected the underworld. Even if it was a soul that had passed away a long time ago, as long as the soul was still around, there was still a chance. A moment later, Duga Cho dashed in, his face filled with excitement. Lord Supreme Cloud. He stuttered for a long time, his face flushed with anxiety, unable to speak. Suddenly he fell to his knees and kowtowed. Duga Cho, who had already attained the level of a demigod, kowtowed to Yun Yang without a care for his image or dignity. "Ah, what are you doing?" Yun Yang helped him up quickly and said, "Dugu, you have to think about this carefully. I promised that I'll do my best, so of course I'll do my best, but I'm not 100% sure. More importantly, even if I can resurrect your wife, her physical body can't be used anymore. She needs to be reconstructed. You should understand the difference." Duga Cho nodded repeatedly, panting heavily. He felt like he was suffocating. Other than nodding, he could not utter another word. Ling Xiaozui had rushed over after hearing the news as well. He looked relieved, obviously happy for Duga Cho from the bottom of his heart. Ever since they had helped Yun Yang that day, the two brothers had basically never been separated. Their bond was closer than that of biological brothers. It was also because of this that Ling Xiaozui could empathize with Duga Cho's regret more than anyone else. Yun Yang wasted no time, immediately burning incense to summon King Yama. Not long after, a cloud of ghastly fog billowed in the hall with a dull thud. King Yama had arrived in person. "What's the matter, summoning you in such a hurry?" King Yama scratched his head and greeted. "Ling Xiaozui, Duga Cho, you two aren't dead yet?" Both of them were exasperated. Concourse of the underworld's King Yama was an old acquaintance in Tianxian. In terms of status and identity, he was almost on par with them. Even if his master, Earth Treasury, were to come personally, he would not dare to be careless in front of both of them. Who would have thought that he would be so arrogant when they met again today? "Nothing much. I just want you to take a look at Duga Cho's wife's soul and see if it can still be used. If it can be used, help to resurrect her. That's all." Yun Yang was nonchalant, his tone casual. King Yama was shocked. "Lord Supreme Cloud, you're not joking, are you? Duga Cho's wife has been dead for so many years, and a remnant of her soul still remains? Even if a remnant of her soul remains, how can it be so easy to resurrect her?" As he spoke, his face grew increasingly contorted. "Although the underworld has been successfully rebooted, we haven't officially opened for business yet. It doesn't make sense for us to start a losing business the moment we open for business. Just tell me if you're going to help or not." Yin Yang said with a smile, his face filled with kindness. "Yes." King Yama gritted his teeth. "You, Lord Supreme Cloud, I'll help if I can. I won't help if I can't. But I have to think of a way to turn things around." King Yama examined the soul carefully and said after a moment of contemplation, "Although this soul has dissipated due to being in this world for a long time, the true spirit is still there. It looks like old Dugo has consulted an expert and made the appropriate arrangements. But does this remnant of the soul have to bring along her previous life's memory to be resurrected? Or does she have to start all over again?" Yun Yang said, "Nonsense. Of course, she has to be resurrected with her memory. I'll send her straight into the cycle of reincarnation if she starts all over again. Why would I need you?" King Yama's expression grew even more pained as he said, "Everything else is fine. To resurrect a remnant of the soul, especially to retain her original memory, she'll need at least 9 flower of the other shore, and a part of the road to hell. When she turns back from the home viewing platform, I'll just push her back. These are all fine. But the other problem is, if you want her to be resurrected with her memory intact, you'll need a body to rely on, won't you? What about her body? I'll make it clear that her original body can't be used. It's been sealed by the mystical ice jade for so many years. It'll definitely dissipate once it's unfrozen. Does it have to be a human body?" Yin Yang frowned. "It's possible to possess a human body, but if it's possible, it's best not to do so, because it'll be a huge hidden danger. Dugu Cho has already advanced to a half-saint, and it's only by chance that he'll advance a step further. The fundamental purpose of resurrecting his wife is to stay together with each other. However, even if those who walk the path of possession are reborn successfully, and even cultivate the martial path again, it'll still be difficult for them to go too far. This is because possession is ultimately against nature. No matter how compatible the target's physical body is, it'll never be able to merge perfectly with the original body. If it's possible, it'll be best to reconstruct the physical body with treasures of heaven and earth. However, treasures of heaven and earth that can reconstruct the physical body can only be obtained with great luck. They're too rare, said King Yama. Yun Yang frowned without saying a word, but his deific consciousness was actually talking to Emmy. Emmy, what treasures of heaven and earth can bear the greatest burden of a human soul? Can the soul be attached to it and be no different from a normal person? Aya. Emmy's soft voice was tinged with doubt. Yun Yang perked up and explained in detail how he wanted to fulfill his promise to Dugacho. Aya. Emmy waved its arms and legs, looking very interested. Its vines waved for a while before 7 to 8 stalks of medicinal herbs were delivered to Yun Yang. King Yama, after some consideration, I plan to use the 10,000-year-old humanoid Chinese knotweed as the body, the 10,000-year-old 9 earthly soul ginseng as the 5 organs, the 10,000-year-old emperor essence as the meridians, and the essence of the 10,000-year-old bloodvine as the blood vessels. The flesh and bones will be the 10,000-year-old ice jade Ganoderma and frost essence snow soul, which can complement each other. As for the head, I plan to use the 10,000-year-old spiritual jade snow ginseng as the material. It should fit perfectly with the body, and the facial organs will be complemented by the 10,000-year-old spiritual amber. As for the soul, I don't have a better choice, so I plan to reconstruct it with the essence of a 100,000-year-old plant. What do you think? These are all of the snow attribute. There won't be any conflict. Yun Yang asked King Yama humbly. After all, it was only Emmy's opinion. King Yama was the expert. Unexpectedly, King Yama was dumbfounded when he heard Yun Yang's suggestion. This is too extravagant. Too extravagant. It was one thing to use the 10,000-year-old humanoid Chinese knotweed as the body, but the 9 earthly soul ginseng, the emperor essence snow ginseng, the bloodvine, the spiritual jade snow ginseng, the spiritual amber, and the ice jade Ganoderma. Any one of these items only existed in legends. Even a supreme saint cultivator would not be able to see such superb spiritual herbs more than a few times in his life. Yet, you still want to fill in the prefix that all of them are 10,000-year-old. Are you trying to shock me to death? The most infuriating thing is still the last 100,000-year-old plant essence. It's not difficult for flowers and plants to transform into Tao, but it's extremely difficult to condense them into spirit essences. You're talking about the 100,000-year-old plant essence right off the bat. And you're asking me if I can do it? I want to say no, but I can't get past my heart. If you really have these items, reconstruct the body of that lady. Once she's resurrected, she'll be a pinnacle expert. Given time, the position of a saint will be within reach. King Yanluo sighed. But there are two sides to this. It is precisely because the treasure that it uses to shape it is too precious. After it is resurrected, as all the elixirs fuse together, the person involved will become a moving treasure of heaven and earth. I believe there will be many people who have their eyes on it. King Yama chuckled. That would truly be the case. A drop of blood can grant one immortality. A piece of flesh can allow one to ascend. And even a mouthful of saliva is the nectar of life. It's hard for any cultivator not to be tempted. No problem. I'll ensure her safety even if I have to die. Duga Cho could barely speak now. Give it to me then. I'll do it quickly right away. If I delay any longer, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold myself back from coveting these spiritual items. This is 2F** King tempting, isn't it? King Yama picked a secluded spot, and the group gathered to guard him. King Yama was decisive indeed, setting up the formation swiftly. With a loud bang, a ghastly fog shrouded the area. Everyone present was at the pinnacle of the world, so it was only natural that they could feel the ghastly fog's uniqueness. It was like an independent space isolated from the rest of the world, yet they could vaguely see King Yama's various movements. King Yama extended his hand, and took the various treasures of heaven and earth from Yin Yang's hands, arranging them neatly. Basically, he placed them right after he had taken them, not leaving a single one behind. Jilingxi, who was watching intently, suddenly felt that something was amiss. With a sideways glance, she saw a patch of emerald green growing on top of Yin Yang's head. A tender leaf bud popped out. There was an eye on the leaf bud, watching King Yama set up the formation with interest. His head had turned green. Jilingxi poked Shangguan Lingxiu with a pout. Shangguan Lingxiu stole a glance, and could not help blushing. She pinched Yun Yang and chided. What do you mean? Can't you let it come out from your shoulder? Why does it have to come from the head? Yun Yang reached out to touch it, his expression turning pale, as he kept Emmy forcefully for the first time in his life. He scolded. If you want to come out in the future, anywhere is fine. You're not allowed to come out from the head. Emmy cried out in confusion. It had come out from this position many times in the past. Why was it not allowed now? It had no idea what it meant. Was it different? Of course it was. In the past, everyone's head had turned green when they saw it. Now it was seen by others, and it was even seen by his fiancée. Of course it was different. It was very, very different. In the next moment, while everyone was watching with rapt attention, a green glow suddenly appeared between Yun Yang's thighs. Emmy had found a new spot to come out. Shangguan Lingxiu and Jilingxi could not help clutching their stomachs, laughing so hard that their stomachs hurt. Seeing that Yun Yang did not seem to mind, they laughed even harder. King Yama was done setting up the formation. Dugucho handed over the ethereal amethyst bottle that contained his wife's soul, like it was a rare treasure. Everyone stepped back. King Yama hollered, Your cultivation base is profound and your aura is thick. Don't let the yang qi of vitality clash with the soul. As Yin Yang and the rest listened and retreated thousands of feet back, the wraith fog suddenly surged in front of them. Bolts of black lightning tore through the void soundlessly. The King Yanluo muttered under his breath. After a long speech he concluded, Hurry up and return. Countless bolts of black lightning encircled the formation, and the 10 flower of the other shore wilted together. Feng Lingtian said. The content was rather messy, so he decided to just name it as a chapter. 10,000 words, isn't that satisfying? Give me some votes. Chapter 1458. Then, a clap of thunder descended from the sky. The lightning was unusually bright, blinding everyone's eyes for a moment. When it was about to strike, the entire palace of 9 supremes shook. King Yanluo came out covering his eyes. He turned to Dugucho and said, I'm telling you, although your wife has been successfully revived, you can only look and not move in these first 16 years. Do you understand? This is actually the process of growing from a baby to a 16-year-old. You can't move without permission, understand? Dugucho asked anxiously, Can we talk? Yes, I can. King Yanluo rolled his eyes. But the thing that can only be done between husband and wife has to be strictly forbidden in these 16 years. No exceptions can be made. Dugucho's face was flushed as he nodded. I know. She still has a natural medicinal fragrance on her. It's tempting to commit a crime. You guys figure this out yourselves. I'm leaving. King Yanluo was about to vanish into a cloud of gray mist. Just as he was about to burrow into the ground, he said, Dugucho, your wife is naked. Find her some clothes quickly. With that, he disappeared without a trace. Dugucho dashed forward with a cry. Then, the group heard a soft voice say something in the wraith fog. Then Dugucho repeated the words. The group exchanged a smile and disappeared in unison, not wanting to be the third wheel. When Dugucho and his wife walked out, they realized that the back of the mountain was empty. Obviously, everyone had avoided them. When Dugucho came out with his wife, he was greeted by hundreds of people. The entire palace of 9 supremes upper echelons were huddled together excitedly, watching with widened eyes. So beautiful. She's the martial world's top beauty indeed. Exactly. No wonder Dugucho can't forget her. If it were me, I wouldn't be able to let it go either. Dugucho was all smiles as he bowed to everyone. Please make way. Cough. Thank you. Let us go thank the sect leader first. Everyone remember to come and drink. Remember. The group answered in unison. Duga Chao's wife's face was flushed. She grabbed Duga Chao's hand tightly with one hand and lowered her head, not daring to lift it. She had never thought that she would be able to see the light of day again after being muddled for so long. He even had a body. He was still alive. It was like a dream. Moreover, he was surrounded by so many people the moment he walked out with a body. The main hall was brightly lit. It was already midnight. "Thank you, Lord Supreme Cloud. Thank you, madam." Duga Cho and his wife fell to their knees before Yun Yang, kowtowing repeatedly. Their gratitude could not be expressed with words. When one's cultivation base had reached Duga Chao's level, it was rare for him to even bend his back or bow his body, let alone kneeling. Now, however, he was prostrating himself on the ground, kowtowing as if he was pounding garlic. There was no other reason other than the deep love between husband and wife, and the grudge they had against the netherworld. "There's no need to be so courteous. We're a family." Yun Yang helped the couple up with a friendly expression. Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu, on the other hand, circled Duga Chao's wife curiously, studying her from head to toe. They had seen with their own eyes a pile of elixirs turn into a person, and now, he was alive and well. Anyone who saw such a scene that exceeded their understanding would inevitably feel that it was strange. If it were not for the fact that they thought it was rude, both of them would have gone forward to touch her and take off her clothes to see for themselves. However, there was one thing that the King Yinluo had mentioned before. Duga Chao's wife was now a spiritual medicine in human form. Just by looking at her, the fragrance she exuded was enough to lift one's spirits. Ji Lingxi could not help speaking to Shangguan Lingxiu telepathically. "Do you think Duga Cho will not be able to hold himself back and eat his wife in the future?" Shangguan Lingxiu shuddered, staring at Ji Lingxi with widened eyes. Ji Lingxi chuckled dryly. "I'm just saying. Dugu, now that your wish has been fulfilled, do you have any plans for the future?" Yun Yang could feel Duga Chao's current state of mind, and could not help sighing inwardly. Perhaps this was the best thing that could happen to Duga Cho. Duga Cho was stunned for a moment before he said, "Going against the demon race will naturally be the first priority." Yun Yang asked, "What happens after that?" Duga Cho was taken aback when he heard the question. Realization dawned in his eyes immediately. He hesitated and said, "Looking at Lord Supreme Cloud's arrangements during this period of time, I'm rather touched. If the bound of universe's humans are defeated after this battle, Lord Supreme Cloud might stay in this world for a while longer. However, if the humans win, I'm afraid that Lord Supreme Cloud will have to leave this world." Yun Yang nodded but did not speak. "Half a year ago, I finally broke through to the level of a demigod. This level is already a height that I dare not dream of. If I'm lucky enough to survive this battle," Duga Cho gritted his teeth and said, "I want to stay in the bound of universe for a long time." Yun Yang sighed and said, "I understand." With Duga Chao's cultivation base, and his fervent determination as a martial maniac, he would definitely achieve greater things if he followed Yun Yang to break through the celestial palace. He would be a great help to Yun Yang in the future, and he might even be able to reach the pinnacle of the universe. Now, however, Duga Cho had made such a decision. It was heart-wrenching yet touching. "Dugu, my original intention was not to resurrect your wife right now. But Lingxi was worried that something might go wrong in this battle, and that you would have a great regret. That's why I've brought this forward," Yun Yang said. "If you're avoiding it because of this, you don't have to. In the universe, we can support each other and ensure our own safety." "Of course, I know that. But," Duga Cho chuckled humorlessly and turned to look at his wife. "I, Duga Cho, have cultivated my entire life and been determined to forge ahead. What I've relied on is my indomitable will. Now, however, my lifelong wish has been fulfilled. Even if I follow Lord Supreme Cloud to ascend to the universe, I'll lose the will to improve, and it'll be hard for me to achieve more in the future. The second reason is that my humble wife has been blessed by Lord Supreme Cloud to be reborn, to transcend the cycle of reincarnation and return to the mortal realm. This is a great opportunity. Although a body forged with spiritual medicine is a step to heaven and a promising future, we still have to live under this sky. My humble wife is the top natural medicine, a treasure of heaven and earth that possesses the power to overturn the cycle of reincarnation. She's one of a kind in this world. Even if we go to the universe, we might still attract the covetous eyes of the strong. We might not be helping you, but adding to the troubles by following you. Who knows when an accident might happen because of her physique? If we stay in the bound of universe, no one in this world will be able to do anything to us. We'll be safe. I Duga Cho don't want to face this regret again. There's a third reason. I can see that all the peak masters in Ling Xiao have the ambition to soar into the sky. I believe that they will leave the bound of universe in the future and ascend to a higher level. I Duga Cho will stay in the palace of 9 supremes. I dare not say more, but my wife and I will protect the palace of 9 supremes for you, so that it will remain safe and sound. Therefore, staying behind to look after the house is more suitable for me now, Duga Cho said resolutely. Yin Yang sighed. That's good too. Everyone has their own aspirations. I won't force it. The reason why Yin Yang sighed was because of the first reason that Duga Cho had mentioned. After his wife's resurrection, Duga Cho's indomitable will to forge ahead had vanished into thin air. Other than the war between the 2 tribes in the Bloody Soul Mountain, the only thought that remained in his mind was to spend the rest of his life with his wife. Such a Duga Cho would only be like what he had said. He would not be able to go far. If he were to force him to follow him to traverse the universe, he might be harming him instead. How could a martial artist who had lost the will to forge ahead expect too much? He was destined to be powerless. The second reason was also the truth. A spiritual herb in human form like this was rare, even in the universe. If a starry warrior were to encounter it, something would definitely happen to him due to this physique. The risk was considerable. You don't have to sigh for me anymore, veritable leader. To me, my life has never been more complete. I have no more regrets, Duga Cho said in satisfaction. Besides, if all of us leave, I won't be at ease if there's no one to guard the base. Watching Duga Cho carefully supporting his wife, who was still walking unnaturally, Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu could not hide the envy on their faces. It's easy to find a priceless treasure, but it's hard to find a lover. For that woman to be able to obtain such a man, her life is not in vain. Shangguan Lingxiu sighed as well. Her lover passed away, separated by life and death, but her infatuation never changed. She waited for an illusory chance of resurrection for hundreds of years. For this, she did not hesitate to risk her life. Finally, her dream came true, her soul returned, and they were reunited. This is a legendary love story, one that makes others envious. Yin Yang said with a dark expression. Husband and wife have reunited. What are you two saying here? Are you really that envious? Ji Lingxi snorted and said with a similarly dark expression. All right, I'll let you two reunite today. I won't be an eyesore here anymore. Before her words echoed in the air, she left with a flick of her sleeves. Shangguan Lingxiu, on the other hand, was flushed, stunned on the spot. Yin Yang was dumbfounded, still in disbelief. What did she mean? Had the seal been lifted? Or perhaps, it was Shangguan Lingxiu. His thoughts raced and his reflexes were lightning fast. He grabbed Shangguan Lingxiu, who was about to leave, and asked, Sister Lingxiu, what did Lingxi mean by that? Shangguan Lingxiu was flushed as she struggled with all her might, but she felt weak all over. She covered her face and said, How would I know what she meant? Why don't you ask her what she said? Yin Yang did not let go of her and said, I'm afraid she doesn't understand either. Why don't you explain it to the public, Sister Lingxiu? It's all right, I'm patient. You can explain it again and again. I'll experience it carefully and think about it slowly. I'll understand eventually. As he spoke, he scooped Shangguan Lingxiu up and walked towards his own dormitory with a strange chuckle. As he walked, he laid down layer after layer of sage restrictions, blocking all possible spies from the outside. Shangguan Lingxiu felt weak all over, as she was held in his embrace. Her head was buzzing as well, as if she had lost the ability to think. Her powerful strength, that was already at the pinnacle of this world, was nowhere to be found. Suddenly she felt a softness on her back. She had been placed on the bed. No, don't. You. Shangguan Lingxiu tried to push him away, but it was as if she was welcoming him. Ha ha ha. Yun Yang tossed his clothes aside and chuckled strangely. Sister Lingxiu, this young brother has been waiting for this day for far too long. Years. 66,666 words have been omitted here. I won't describe it in detail, lest everyone accuses me of being lazy. You don't have to thank me for saving a few bucks of subscription fees for everyone. That night, his wish was finally fulfilled. Yun Yang, who had gotten rid of the title of Little White, did not sleep the entire night. When the sun rose from the east the next day, and the horizon broke, Supreme Leader Yun got off the bed and dressed himself slowly. He said slowly, I'm going to check on the disciples' cultivation. What are they trying to do by breaking through the seals so early in the morning? Shangguan Lingxiu, who was behind him, did not respond. She had long fallen into a deep sleep. For the entire night, the only thing that Shangguan Lingxiu was thankful for was that her cultivation base was still decent, and that she had listened to her master, and only given it to him after attaining the level of a saint. In spite of this, she did not rest for the entire night. She was mentally and physically exhausted. The longest break she had was to say a few words. I can't take it anymore. Sleep for a while. It's okay, I can take it. You can take it, but I can't. Shangguan Lingxiu felt that she had never slept so soundly since she started practicing martial arts. It was as if she could not wake up even if the sky were to fall. Just as Yun Yang walked out of the hall, he was immediately sealed off with layers of seals. He asked in surprise, Why are you here? It was none other than Jilingxi. Jilingxi's face was filled with jealousy. She pouted and said in an annoyed tone, What do you think? Did you have a good night last night? You must be satisfied and high-spirited after tasting what you wanted, right? Yun Yang chuckled and said with a smug face, How am I satisfied? It's far from enough. If you... Jilingxi's face was flushed as she said angrily, Nonsense. What nonsense are you spouting? Be careful that I don't beat you up, you lecher. Yun Yang laughed. Who's outside? Yun Xiuxin's voice rang out. Master, it's your disciple. Please grant me a meeting regarding the report on the casualties in Blood Soul Mountain last month. Yun Yang nodded and said, Come in. Yun Xiuxin came in with her head shrunk. When she saw Yun Yang's face, her eyes lit up and she blurted out, Master, you look so handsome today. Did something good happen? Yun Yang could not help but smile from the bottom of his heart. Yes, there are indeed many good things. Show me the report. What he saw was Jilingxi rolling her eyes in a frenzy. She took the report and skimmed through it, musing for a while before saying, Well done. Have the compensation for the deceased disciples been sent? Is there someone to supervise it? Feng Lingtian said. I realized that there are geniuses among you. Many of you can predict perfectly as described in this chapter, and many of you can think of things that I can't. Chapter 1459. It's been sent a long time ago. Our sect has always given compensation as soon as possible, so there are few omissions. Still, send someone to supervise it, just in case. Yes. Have you arranged for the punishment hall to investigate the aftermath? It has been arranged. That's good. We must not let our disciples shed blood and tears. At least, we must put an end to this kind of phenomenon in the Palace of Nine Supremes. Don't let it go unpunished. Anyone who violates the rules will not be treated lightly. Now the disciples of Blood Soul Mountain have sent a message asking if this month still needs to be called back. Yin Yang thought for a moment and said, What's the situation at Blood Soul Mountain now? According to the report, the situation is still in a state of unhurried stalemate. Although the frequency of fighting has increased, the increase is not very large, said Yun Xiuxin. It's just that Hu Xiaofan is there now, and he has reported in a secret letter that sometimes in the dead of the night, when he spreads out his divine sense with all his might, he will occasionally hear the sound of waves crashing. But there is no sea or even a river at Blood Soul Mountain, and it's a world of ice and snow everywhere. No one else has noticed this movement, and only he has heard it. Even he doesn't dare to say it. We all say that he is crazy, making a fuss about nothing and making trouble out of nothing. Yun Yang was immediately vigilant. The sound of waves? What exactly is the situation? With Xiaofan's temperament, he won't speak without thinking. There must be a reason. Xiaofan went out to train some time ago, and accidentally fell into an ancient cave abode, and obtained some inheritance. This is nothing, but according to him, there is a 10,000-year-old ice jade box in the cave abode, and there is nothing in the box but 2 lotus slices. Xiaofan ate it without asking anything, and then the power of his divine sense skyrocketed, almost 10 times stronger. He often shows off in front of his disciples, saying that he heard some strange noise, but we don't believe it. Yin Xiuxin giggled and said, but his inheritance is really something. Not to mention the others, even I've used all my strength and my trump card, but I've only managed to fight him to a draw. Master, are you not going to teach me 1 or 2 more moves? If I can't defeat him, not only will I embarrass eldest senior sister, but I'll also embarrass you, master. Yin Yang did not beat around the bush. He tossed a jade slip to her and said, there's a saber style inside. As long as you practice it well, you'll be able to defeat Xiaofan. It was not that Yin Yang was favoring one and discriminating against the other. With Hu Xiaofan's temperament, if he were to become the eldest senior brother, he might even poke a hole in the sky. Therefore, he had to leave behind someone to deal with him. After sending Yin Xiuxin away, he frowned. The sound of waves? Hu Xiaofan said he heard the sound of waves, but no one else heard it. This matter was really worth discussing. During the time Yin Yang was away, Hu Xiaofan had encountered many fortuitous encounters, and the speed of his cultivation base's advancement was no less than Yin Yang's in the past. His strength had risen to the top of the Palace of 9 Supreme's disciples, and now he had reached the level of a 4th-tier saint. In the Blood Soul Mountain, he could already be regarded as a top expert, and few could match him. Yin Yang did not believe that Hu Xiaofan was still boasting at this moment. Not to mention that Yin Xiuxin had mentioned just now that the power of Hu Xiaofan's divine sense had unexpectedly increased by 10 times over his current cultivation base. It was no longer an ordinary level of divine sense, but comparable to the divine sense of a saint cultivator. If Hu Xiaofan's words were true, then the sound of waves. Yin Yang frowned and said, don't withdraw Hu Xiaofan and the others for now. The second batch of people will go there directly and set up camp at the foot of the Blood Soul Mountain. Be careful and guard against any unexpected variables. Yes. Also, tell Hu Xiaofan to listen closely to the sound of the waves he mentioned every night. Monitor the volume and intensity of the sound, and it will be best if he can confirm its movement. Ah, Master, this is obviously Hu Xiaofan bragging. At first, we all believed him, but after asking around, so many seniors, including the saints, did not hear any sound of waves. We don't believe it at all. I just mentioned it to you just for fun, said Yin Xiuxin. Yin Yang said, whether he is bragging or not, I want him to listen carefully. Tell him that if he is telling the truth, he will be imprisoned for 100 years when he comes back. Ha ha ha. Yin Xiuxin gloated. Very well, master. I'll tell him word for word. Yin Xiuxin left. Yin Yang, however, was still deep in thought. The sound of waves. With the power of my divine sense, it should be the best in the bound of universe now. When it's quiet in the middle of the night, I can even hear the sound of waves tens of thousands of miles away, as long as I listen carefully. If it's Hu Xiaofan, it's roughly equivalent to the limit of a beginner saint's hearing, so it should be about 3,000 miles? If it's a middle-level one, 5,000 miles? I hope it's not true as everyone said. But if Xiaofan does hear the sound of waves, it's not a small matter. It will be the beginning of a huge hidden danger. Only Yin Yang had been to the interior of the demon race, so he had a rough idea of the situation there. The distance from the Blood Soul Mountain to the demon race's internal sea was nearly tens of thousands of miles. With such a long distance, even if Yin Yang came here personally, he would not be able to hear the sound of waves, let alone Hu Xiaofan. The closest thing to the Blood Soul Mountain was a huge glacier 4,000 to 5,000 miles away, which had nothing to do with the sea. Yin Yang was actually very wary of the demon race's internal sea. The area of the demon race's ocean was more than 10 times larger than the land. If there were no powerful beasts in it, Yin Yang would not believe it anyway. Take the Lunar River for example. Not only did the strange fish in the lunar river possess the monstrous strength to transcend levels, but they also had incredibly strong physical bodies. The high-level golden monstrous fish king also possessed terrifying mental strength, which allowed it to break through yin-yang's rarely failed water manifestation. There were more than a dozen high-level golden monstrous fish kings, so who knew if there was an even more terrifying emperor mermaid among them? Speaking of the ocean, Yun-yang had seen quite a number of places that were separated by the ocean when they passed through the territories of the demon race. The Lunar River, for example, was only one of the many tributaries that flowed into the ocean. Since the Lunar River could be monopolized by the Golden Monstrous Fish clan, the other tributaries might be equally, or even more terrifying. The combat power that the demon race had displayed so far was perhaps only the tip of the iceberg. The war between the two races did not bode well for the human race. Looks like there's a need to make another trip to the demon race. Yin-yang stood up and muttered to himself. I'm going too, Jilingxi said loudly from the side. Yin-yang gave her a sideways glance and said, Why are you going? I can ensure that no one will find out if I go alone. You'll only add to the chaos if you come along. Jilingxi was enraged. Yin-yang, don't take it for granted. It was me who persuaded Sister Lingxiu last night to let you have it. How could you do this? As she spoke, her eyes were rimmed red, her heart filled with an inexplicable sense of grievance. I've always been considerate of you, swallowing my pride to persuade Sister Lingxiu for a few days. You heartless bastard. How dare you despise me and shout at me? Yin-yang leaned forward and said in a flattering tone. I knew that little Lingxi couldn't bear for me to hold it in like this. The truth has proven that little Lingxi is still my little sweetheart. You're the most considerate of me. I'm so touched, so grateful. Jilingxi blushed and said, Lecher, that's your little sweetheart. Humph. Go back and tell Sister Lingxiu. Don't discuss me here. Yin-yang stopped her from leaving and said, Lingxi, my feelings for you can only be seen by the heavens. Oh, we've been engaged for so long. Say, when can you be released like Lingxiu? Yin-yang stopped her from leaving and said, Lingxi. Jilingxi said angrily, I knew that you're a bad boy. Isn't Sister Lingxiu enough? I won't be released anymore. When the battle starts and the front is in a tight spot, tear the space apart and rush over to help. Understood. The second matter is about the Nine Supremes Palace's grand plan. Dong Qitian asked seriously, Have you considered it? What grand plan? So serious? In the future, the Nine Supremes Palace will rise and ascend to the pinnacle of the bound of universe's human sections. It'll be invincible in this world, but prosperity comes and goes. To protect the sect's reputation, we have a long way to go. How can we not think about the long term and seek for long-term peace? Yin-yang was silent for a moment before he said, I have no intention of interfering with the future. Every sect will rise and fall, glory and disgrace. Children and grandchildren have their own blessings. Calculating too much will only make the future generations rely on us too much. We're all going to leave this world in the future, but there must be an order. Let's leave the future to the last one to worry about. Dong Qitian smacked his lips. It was very irresponsible of Yin-yang to say this, but it was indeed the most convenient way. After all, no one could tell what the future would be like. It was even harder to come to a conclusion. Only the last one left had the right to decide. It was impossible for these people to ascend at the same time, so there must be an order. Yin-yang said, No sect is the eternal protagonist never to fall. Take the Palace of Nine Supremes as an example. If we were to say that the first batch of founding elders have all left this world, I think it would take at least 5,000 years. The group nodded silently. Not only was the number not exaggerated, it was rather conservative. Also, there will always be some elders who don't have enough luck. Even if they're capable, they might not be able to comprehend. It'll be difficult for them to break through the last step. But it'll take at least 20,000 years for them to no longer exist in this world. Right? The group nodded. The number was still a little conservative. It's only been a few days since we've established the sect. Aren't we worrying too much when we're already planning for 20,000 years? With our current setup, it should be more than enough to sustain the sect for 20,000 years. Yin Yang spread his arms. Everyone, you're thinking too much. It's too far away. The group was speechless for a moment. It was true. That was indeed the case. However, many of them still felt that it was a pity. Such a powerful sect had never existed since the beginning of time. What if they could pass on their legacy for thousands and thousands of generations? How wonderful would that be? Everyone knew that it was impossible. It was an extravagant hope. You're worrying too much. Yin Yang smiled. If you meet a prodigal, you'll lose everything, even if it's the iron ruler of the world. If you meet a worthy disciple, even if it's a lowly sect, he can develop it into one of the 3 celestial palaces. Don't worry about the future. The group was convinced. Their leader was the most open-minded. Their leader was still the best. This state of mind, it was simply incredible. Otherwise, he would be the leader of the sect. With his bare hands, he forcefully took down such a huge sect. Apart from ascending to the top, he still did not yearn for power and position, nor did he feel lonely at the top. It was only because his martial arts path and his desire to improve had never been extinguished. He never stopped moving forward, and he had no regrets. Yin Yang informed Dongfang Haoran and the others about the waves and emphasized, guard against the other side luring the sea over. Even with Yin Yang's seriousness, Dongfang Haoran and the others were still unconcerned. Luring the sea? How could it be so easy? Feng Lingtian said. The plot was like a mad dog that had escaped its leash, sprinting towards the end. Amp GT. Chapter 1460. The reason was simple. The amount of work required was too great, almost exceeding the limits of manpower. Even if it could be drawn here, no matter what kind of ocean it was, how much power could it retain after drawing the seawater for hundreds of thousands of miles? Was this a joke? Even if the sea was really drawn here, it would only be a small river in the end. Moreover, the Blood Soul Mountain was covered in ice and snow all year round. The entire Blood Soul Mountain was just a huge iceberg. Seawater? That was a joke. The 3 rulers did not pay too much attention to the great demon in the sea. The human and demon races had been fighting for countless years, so they had a rough idea of the top combat power of both sides. Although the experts of the sea race had never shown themselves, they were still the sea race. How could they stay on land for long? The Blood Soul Mountain was a natural barrier. The sea race would never be able to come over, and it was hard to say if they could even join the war. Even if they did, the sea race's power would be reduced on land. Yin Yang did not have any evidence on this matter, so he could only inform them. He had wanted to contact the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor to see if he could get some evidence, but he could not contact them at all. They were probably busy and had no time to spare. Yin Yang did not dwell on this matter. Besides, it was sect leader Yun's big day. She had been single for so many years. Now that she had a new partner, how could she hold herself back? She would do her best to satisfy herself. If a war were to break out now, Yin Yang would probably be upset. Look at the time. No war? That's great, ha ha ha. This sect leader is enjoying himself at home, having a good hee-hee-hee. For the next month, the Bound of Universe was in a state of panic. The attacks of the demon race were getting more and more aggressive. But leader Yun stayed in the Palace of 9 Supremes without stepping out. He chatted with Ji Lingxi in the day, and spent the night with Shangguan Lingxiu. He was aroused in the day, and at night, he was living like an immortal. However, such a beautiful day would come to an end. Another piece of breaking news came. Hu Xiaofan. The sound of the waves is getting closer. Now, as long as one's cultivation base is above the 4th level of a Saint Monarch, they can hear the sound of the waves when it's quiet. It's not just my words, it's true. Yin Yang was shocked to hear the news. If many people could hear it, it meant that the seawater was very close. The demons could not hide it even if they wanted to. That distance was probably around 1,000 miles or so. Everyone move out. Prepare to fight the Blood Soul Mountain. After giving the order, Yin Yang tore through space and hurried towards the starry night of the Crimson Soul Mountain with Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu in tow. At the same time, the 3 sovereigns received Yin Yang's message and hurriedly carried out the succession ceremony before hurrying over. Yin Yang, and the two ladies tore the space apart and hurried on their way. However, halfway through their journey, the Fox Emperor's jade pendant, that had lain dormant for a long time, suddenly emitted a scorching aura. "It's urgent." Yun Yang hurriedly took it out and wanted to ask what was going on, but he realized that the call would not go through. Yun Yang tried again and again, but to no avail. With a frown, he said, "I have to go to the demonic race first. Both of you, let's go together." The two girls shouted at the same time. "Very well." Yun Yang thought about it again. Now that the two ladies' cultivation base had reached the Saint Realm, they could always escape even if they encountered the demonic race's army. Moreover, they had that domineering power that could devour them. They were basically a weapon that could turn the tables. He did not insist further and acquiesced to the two ladies' journey. The trio's speed increased again as they hurried towards the Crimson Soul Mountain. However, when they were 3,000 miles away from the mountain, Yun Yang felt that something was not right. Why does it feel so damp? The air was filled with a humid atmosphere. To Yun Yang, who was well versed in the cloud and water forms, it was not too obvious. "It's normal for the weather to be damp when it's snowing heavily," Ji Lingxi said nonchalantly. Indeed, the snow was falling, covering the sun and the sky. It was so dense that no one could be seen on the other side. Even if it's snowing heavily, the air shouldn't be so damp. "This isn't normal," Yun Yang said. "Both of you sense it carefully. There's actually a warmth in such weather. We're not too far away from the Crimson Soul Mountain. It's affected by the extreme cold of the mountain all year round. Moreover, it's so high up in the sky. It's normal for a drop of water to freeze into ice at this time of the season. Where's the warmth coming from?" The three of them continued on their journey. In less than the time it took to drink 2 cups of tea, the Crimson Soul Mountain was already in sight. The densely packed campgrounds at the foot of the mountain came into view as well. Various sects, gangs, and local forces were all gathered here. At a glance, the entire land was filled with tents, stretching all the way to the mountainside. Millions of human cultivators of Saint Emperor and above were all gathered here. In spite of this, what struck the trio as odd was the fact that many of them were dressed in autumn attire and did not look like they were cold. Some of them were even half naked, gathering to drink and chat in a random spot amidst the heavy snow. Although it was said that once one's cultivation base had reached a certain level, one would still need to circulate their cultivation base to resist the cold. In the face of a great battle that could break out at any time, it was not appropriate to squander mystical chi so recklessly. Yun Yang looked again and found that these people did not use mystical chi. Some of them were even emitting hot steam. They were actually dressed like this because of the weather. Yun Yang retracted his mystical chi defense and carefully sensed the surrounding atmosphere. Immediately, he felt a warm air coming from the air, making him feel a sense of laziness and warmth. On the distant peak of the Crimson Soul Mountain, there was already a lot of snow that showed signs of melting. Below the mountainside, there was a gurgling stream flowing downwards. The current temperature was more than 10 times higher than the last time he came. If the temperature here was originally 100 degrees below zero, it would be 3 or 4 degrees above zero now, or even slightly higher. In short, it was a comfortable temperature suitable for living. Seeing this scene, Yun Yang's face suddenly turned pale. How could there be such a drastic change in the temperature around the Crimson Soul Mountain? And what would be the consequences of such a drastic change in temperature? If the many snowy mountains around them melted at the same time, and the snow melted into water and flowed down, what would happen? Was it only the snowy mountains on this side that were melting now? What if the many snowy mountains on the demon race's side melted as well? Thinking of this, Yun Yang could not help but shudder. What was the demon race doing? What were they trying to achieve? Waves? Waves? Yun Yang's heart skipped a beat. He was about to arrive at the Crimson Soul Mountain, but his camp had changed their route at the last minute. With a whoosh, Yun Yang landed on the peak of the Crimson Soul Mountain. Yun Yang saw that the dozen or so Saint Lords who stayed behind were all on standby, standing outside with solemn expressions, watching the demon race's flatlands below. Yun Yang followed the crowd's line of sight through the thick clouds, and was shocked to see that the demon realm's plains had turned into crisscrossing rivers. Looking at the source, it seemed to stretch towards the demon realms inland. There were big and small rivers, and there were many of them. A few of them were at least thousands of feet wide, surging forward with great momentum. What bothered Yunyang more, however, were the giant ice blocks floating on the river's surface. They were either colliding with each other or squeezing into a ball, all of them slowly flowing downstream. As the mass of water flow continued, the places that it passed through naturally formed riverbeds. Some of the low-lying areas had even turned into lakes, and when the lakes were full, they spontaneously looked for other places for water to flow. As the water flowed, many rivers converged into one and gradually flowed downwards. As far as the eye could see, the once beautiful Fox Race's flatlands was now a scene of devastation, filled with rivers. Lord Supreme Cloud. Yunyang knew all these saint lords who were stationed at the Crimson Soul mouth. They were all from the East Celestial Palace. Thank you for your hard work, everyone. Lord Supreme Cloud, do you think the demon race, should we use water to attack? One of the saint lords had white hair and beard, but he was respectful towards Yunyang. This Lord Supreme Cloud was a creator of miracles. This is already an undeniable fact. At this stage, the demon race will definitely use water to attack. Yunyang sighed heavily as he looked at the snow-capped mountains that were roaring and roaring. We know this as well, but it's been said that the entire demon race's inland is a huge basin. More than 60% of the outskirts are high mountains. If all the snow melts, I'm afraid the entire demon race's inland will turn into a vast ocean. The first to bear the brunt and suffer the most will be the demon race. There will be no more soil for them to live on. Other than a few flying tribes that can build their nests on the peaks of the mountains, the other tribes will suffer the disaster of extinction. Isn't this a suicidal move? Perhaps this is the demon race's higher-ups' plan. Yunyang's gaze was deep as he said faintly, I'm afraid this is far from enough. It hasn't reached the expectations of the demon race's higher-ups. This is still not enough. The Saint Lord stared at Yunyang in shock, then turned to look at the demon race's plains below. If this was still not enough, what was the demon race's higher-ups trying to do? Could it be that the entire demon clan's territory, such a vast area, would be transformed into a vast ocean? I guess the demon race is staking it all on this, putting everything on the line. Yunyang's voice was solemn. The demon race is using the threat of the entire tribe's survival as a last resort. A simple sea tsunami is definitely not enough to destroy the Blood Soul Mountain. There must be other means. This time, the demon race is going all out. It's either win or die trying. However, why are the demon race's higher-ups so confident? They think that by doing this, they can definitely break through the Blood Soul Mountain, the ultimate barrier that separates humans and demons that has stood for countless years. Yunyang looked up at the Blood Soul Mountain, which was immeasurably high and majestic, and could not be shaken by human power alone. His eyes glinted as his thoughts ran wild. Other than its sturdiness, the Blood Soul Mountain was also augmented by the saint power. It was a power that exceeded the bound of universe's limit. How could it be destroyed by mere seawater? Even an ordinary mountain could not be destroyed by seawater. At most it could only drown it, but it could not be destroyed by brute force. To put it bluntly, even if the entire bound of universe was submerged by seawater, there would still be a large portion of the Blood Soul Mountain above the water's surface. This was an impossible strategy that could never succeed. However, the demon race was obviously doing this. There must be something fishy about it, but they could not figure it out yet. Let's go. Yunyang, Jilingxi, and Shangguan Lingxiu took a step forward and passed through the passageway between the two realms, speeding towards the demon realm on the other side. Lord Supreme Cloud, be careful. The Fox Emperor, who had been missing for a long time, was now in a terrible state. The entire Fox clan had been surrounded by water. If it was a direct battle, the Fox Emperor was not afraid. With the strength of the entire Fox clan, even if the Dragon clan attacked in full force, and the Fox clan was inevitably annihilated, they were confident that they could deal a heavy blow to the Dragon clan. They might not even have the ability to overwhelm the other clans. However, He did not expect the Demon Palace's experts to only focus on restraining the Fox clan's main force after they arrived. They did not fight to the death, only entangling, and not doing anything else. Since the other party did not fight to the death, the weaker Fox clan had no reason to risk their lives. Therefore, both parties fell into an awkward stalemate, one that lasted day after day. From a certain day about a year ago, the weather suddenly changed for some unknown reason. It became hotter. This change did not have any effect on the ordinary fox race. However, as the climate changed, the living environment also changed bit by bit. The most obvious change was the downpour of rain every day. Later on, even the snow mountains began to melt. The original living environment suddenly underwent a huge change. Originally, the Fox clan's territory only had a few lakes, a few rivers and many wells. Although the climate was slightly dry, it was still sufficient for drinking. But now, there were dozens of rivers, thousands of lakes and countless tributaries. It caused the Fox clan's dry area to suddenly become a flood disaster area. The Fox clan's original residences were all destroyed, and they had no choice but to move again and again. Up to this day, the flooding had reached the point where the Fox Emperor City was completely besieged. One should know that the Fox Emperor City was located at an extremely high point in the Fox clan's territory. The difference between the Fox Emperor City and the lower areas outside the city was almost 100 feet. Now the water outside the Fox Emperor City was already 10 feet deep. This meant that the original flatland outside the Fox Emperor City, the deepest part of the water, had already reached a terrifying number of nearly 1,000 feet. 1,000 feet deep, what kind of concept was that? Under normal circumstances, even the deepest lake, as long as there were no demonic beasts or powerful water-type Xian beasts, would not be able to reach a depth of 1,000 feet. And this was originally a flat area. If it was the location of the lake, what would happen if the two overlapped? It was an unimaginably terrifying situation. Looking at the wails of his people, the Fox Emperor felt extremely helpless. No matter what race they were, most of them were ordinary and weak people. Even the Fox clan, which was considered a powerful race among the Demon clan, could not survive in the water for long. Today, the total population of the Fox clan had decreased by 70%. The Fox Emperor had never thought that the most terrifying power in this world was actually water. Chapter 1461. Water was something that even top experts could not do anything to. They were powerless against it. If it was fire, they could try to extinguish it, but water, they could send it flying. But what fell down was still water. What could they do against such a huge flood? Even if the Phoenix Sovereign, who was known for his fire attribute techniques, or all the powerhouses of the Phoenix race, they couldn't evaporate all the water. It wasn't that the Fox Sovereign hadn't tried to divert the water, but the Fox race was at the border of the Demon race, and they were located downstream, so there was no way to divert the water. The flood continued to accumulate, and it became the most terrifying disaster in the world, unstoppable. To the Fox Sovereign, even if he had great cultivation, he could only wait passively for the water to subside. Other than that, there was nothing he could do. There are more and more refugees, and they are all gathering towards the Fox Sovereign City. What should we do? The Fox Sovereign City can't hold so many people. A great sage of the Fox race came over with a solemn expression. In fact, the Fox Sovereign City has already exceeded the limit of saturation. If more people come in, I'm afraid. The Fox Sovereign's expression was solemn. How is the movement towards the mountain? The mountaintop area is limited. How many can we move in such a short time? We will start from the middle of the mountain to open up a living area, and then transport people there. But only those with cultivation can survive there, and food is also a problem. Without a certain level of cultivation, it's hard to even breathe there, and it's not a long-term solution. What's more, the rain is still continuing, and the melting of the snow mountain is still worsening. I believe the water level will continue to rise, and the caves on the mountain are only 4,000 to 5,000 feet high, so it's hard to guarantee their safety. There's still room to maintain the current situation, but what I'm afraid of is the demon race in the sea, the cat ancestor said worriedly. If the demon race in the sea takes the opportunity to stir up trouble, that's the real disaster. I have to say, the demon sovereign really values our two races by any means necessary. They don't hesitate to drown this continent just to get rid of us. What a good method, what a good scheme. The fox sovereign said with a solemn expression. No, you're wrong. The cat ancestor. I'm wrong? What's wrong? You're wrong in overestimating our importance to the demon sovereign, or to the demon race. All of this didn't happen because of our rebellion. The most important reason is that this place is located at the foot of the Blood Soul Mountain. Even if the Fox clan knew their place, all of this would still happen. This water is not for the sake of drowning the Fox clan and Cat clan, but to attack the Blood Soul Mountain. I believe that the Demon Emperor and the Phoenix Emperor have long decided on this decisive plan. They will use the boundless water to attack the Blood Soul Mountain and open up a path for the demon race to conquer the Xianhuang human race. On the other hand, they can also use the water to mobilize the sea demon race to join the battle, increasing their chances of victory. Finally, they will kill the Fox race who rebelled. Even if the Fox clan did not rebel, they would still have to sacrifice themselves for the demon clan's 1,000-year achievement of conquering the human clan. This is a three-way plan. It is truly remarkable. In other words, my Fox clan has long been included in the list of sacrifices. On the other hand, it was your Cat clan that was implicated in this flood. When you arrived here, you just happened to be caught up in this man-made disaster. The Fox Emperor's eyes flashed. I say, ever since my son's prophecy was spread, the Demon Emperor has been indifferent. Long Yutian's indifference is one thing, but the Phoenix Emperor is also indifferent. So this is the truth. From the beginning, they never thought of letting the Fox clan continue to live. But when did all of this start to be set up? When did this plan start? Why didn't there be any traces of it before? The Fox Emperor searched through all his memories with all his might, but there was no relevant impression. How is it possible that no traces of such a huge plan have been leaked? The cat ancestor was already so shocked that he couldn't speak. The boundless water had completely destroyed this vast area. How many living beings had to be sacrificed for this? Although most of the land within hundreds of thousands of miles was the original territory of the Fox clan, it was not just the Fox clan. Would the demon sovereign commit such a heinous crime? The cat ancestor thought back to the demon emperor. Although he hated him to the core, he still felt that the demon emperor would not do something so demonic. Even if he was stubborn and arrogant, even if he was domineering and merciless, but this doesn't seem like the demon emperor's plan. It seems more like the Phoenix Emperor's plan. The cat ancestor mused. What do you mean by more like? This is the Phoenix Emperor's plan. The Fox Emperor snorted and said, Long Yutian would never have thought of such a ruthless yet ingenious plan. Not to mention the others, only the Phoenix Emperor would have such a ruthless heart to achieve success at all costs. He mused and said, Perhaps this plan is the backup strategy. However, Yun Yang's previous visit ruined the demon race's original plan. After all, this plan is too ruthless and extreme. Once it's used, it'll disappoint all the other races, so it can only be used as a backup. However, Yun Yang ruined the original plan, and we openly declared our rebellion, giving the Demon Emperor and Phoenix Emperor enough reason to start the plan. Then this plan began. Let's not talk about the origin of this stupid plan now. The most important thing now is what we should do. The cat ancestor could not do anything even if he had the strength. Now that the situation had changed, he could not even find someone to fight to the death. Now that the flood was here, the experts of the demonic beast palace had long disappeared. They were the only ones left to defend the isolated city. It's not realistic to trap us to death. Even if the flood is difficult to solve, most of the ordinary foxes will die. No one can do anything about it. As for the other foxes, they have the space to survive. With the storage I've made, it can last for at least a year and a half. As for the future, us higher-ups will bring hundreds and thousands of spatial rings to rob. We'll be able to let our people live, the Fox Emperor said worriedly. The key is that since this plan has begun, the Phoenix Emperor will never allow us to linger here like this. There will definitely be follow-up actions. When the time is right, the final battle will be inevitable. It only depends on how early or late it is. The Fox Emperor walked slowly to the front hall and said, "Let's act according to the urgency of the matter. Clear out an area in the imperial city for the exclusive use of the royals. Open up the rest and let our people live there to tide through the difficulties together." "Yes." The cat ancestor followed beside him and said, "Fox, you should make the arrangements." "I know. I've already sent a message to third brother." The Fox Emperor said calmly, "Let him come and take you away. Cat, if you have any people you can't let go of, let him take them away as well. The two races have been wiped out, so there has to be a spark left." The Fox Emperor's body appeared to be in a rare state of melancholy. In the pouring rain, he said softly, "I was originally quite confident that if we were able to maneuver the slightest bit, we would at least be able to protect ourselves in this internal battle. But now, with the Phoenix Emperor's plan to flood the continent, we have already become internal threats that must be removed. There is no longer any room for us to turn back. This time, we really have no way out. Once the army arrives, the two of us will definitely be the first targets." The cat ancestor was silent for a moment before he smiled and said, "If that's the case, I'm still stronger than you. I already have a bloodline with OL third, so I have less to worry about. I don't have to worry about the bloodline of the cat clan being cut off. We've lived our whole lives, so we'll have to fight our whole lives. We'll die in battle in the end. We're already very satisfied that we didn't die in prison. We shouldn't force it." He even chuckled joyfully and said, "Fox, remember to prepare a few more female foxes for your son. Otherwise, your race might still go extinct." The Fox Emperor laughed. "Do I need you to tell me that? If I don't even have such a plan, I wouldn't be a father." At this moment, a voice asked with a relaxed smile, "The army hasn't even reached the city yet. Why are you already making arrangements? Is the situation really that serious?" It was Yin Yang's voice. Before he spoke, the Fox Emperor and the cat ancestor did not notice when he had arrived with their cultivation base. Instead of being shocked, the Fox Emperor and the cat ancestor were overjoyed. Yin Yang's arrival was equivalent to bringing a ray of light to their predicament. They were not completely hopeless. Yin Yang was the spokesperson of miracles, whether it was the bound of universe's humans or the demon races. Whenever he stepped in, he would always turn the impossible into the possible. There had been too many examples before this. "Oh, third brother." Once Yin Yang appeared, he laughed. "Greetings, my two elder brothers. How have you been, my two elder brothers?" Then he said, "I have to make a grand introduction to you. These are your sisters-in-law. Heh, they're both my wives, heh." Ji Lingxi and Shangguan Lingxiu rolled their eyes at him and bowed to the two kings. "Big brother, second brother." The Fox Emperor and the cat ancestor exchanged glances with each other, feeling even happier. Yin Yang was obviously treating them as sworn brothers by doing this. He had actually brought his wives over during such a critical moment. The two emperors chuckled happily and waved their hands, saying, "Sisters-in-law, quickly dispense with the formalities." "Aya." The two martial emperors searched their bodies for a while before each of them took out two space rings. They passed them over and said, "This is a greeting gift from Big Brother. Recently, I really haven't had much money, so please don't mind it." Yin Yang chuckled. Both elder brothers are sovereigns of their respective races. How can they be petty? It's the right thing for both of you to accept it quickly. Don't reject it, or else they'll take it back. The excuse is already there. Didn't you hear that we've been short on cash lately? *CKU. We're not as petty as you. The two emperors chided in unison. "OL third, your cultivation base is improving really fast." The Fox Emperor's eyes glinted. As he stared at Yin Yang, he actually felt that he could no longer see through Yin Yang's cultivation base. It was no different from saying that Yin Yang's cultivation base had surpassed his. The Fox Emperor had never doubted that Yin Yang could surpass him, but the time was too short. It had only been slightly more than 2 years since they last parted. How could Yin Yang have advanced to the level of saint already? What's more, he was an upper-level saint that surpassed his realm. I believe that both of you should have heard of the prestigious Supreme Heaven Pavilion Selection event in the Bound of Universe. I was just in time for it. Due to fate, I managed to ascend to the pinnacle of the saint realm. It's just a fluke, Yunyang said with a smile. Supreme Heaven Pavilion selection? The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor exclaimed at the same time. They remembered that when they last met Yunyang, he was only a supreme saint. It had only been slightly more than 2 years since then. Even though the Supreme Heaven Pavilion selection was renowned, and was a grand event that the 3 heavenly palaces did not host to the public, how could a supreme saint cultivator soar to the pinnacle of saint by chance? Since the beginning of time, no one had ever been heard of to be this fast. Elder brothers, you're being too surprised. My improvement is due to fate. Yunyang said. Look at them closely. They haven't experienced the Supreme Heaven Pavilion's opportunity. But aren't they already upper-level saints? Comparisons are odious. The Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor turned to stare at the 2 ladies in disbelief, their gazes filled with inexplicable shock. When Yunyang introduced the 2 ladies to the Fox Emperor and the Cat Ancestor earlier, the 2 emperors had only caught a glimpse of them and were surprised by the ladies' beauty, but they did not delve into it. Now that they observed them closely, they realized that they could not see through the ladies' cultivation base as well. It could only mean that the 2 ladies' cultivation base was at least upper-level saints. Heroes come from the young indeed. God bless the human race. The 2 emperors were not the least bit discouraged. They had cultivated diligently for their entire lives and accumulated tens of thousands of years. But they were only at the pinnacle of intermediate saint. How old were Yunyang and his 2 wives? How could they surpass them with just a little cultivation? Could it be that comparisons were odious? This was an extremely unpleasant feeling, wasn't it? That night, the Fox Palace held a sumptuous banquet to welcome Yunyang's arrival. There were less than 10 participants, but the Fox Emperor, the Fox Empress, the Fox Crown Prince, the Cat Ancestor and his 3 concubines, as well as the 3 demigods of the Fox clan were all present. They were the strongest combat power of the Fox clan and the Cat clan, as well as the highest authority. The Cat, Tunten, and the Fox Empress were extremely affectionate towards Jilingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu, holding their hands and whispering to each other. Which one of these high-ranking female members of the demon clan was not smart? Naturally, they could tell that one of the wives of their husband's sworn brother was actually a virgin. Naturally, everyone was baffled by this. Yunyang had addressed Jilingxi as his wife, and there was no hint of displeasure in it. When they met just now, she had also greeted him as a proper sister-in-law. This was proof that Jilingxi's heart was all for Yunyang and could not be chased away. There was no estrangement between the 2 of them. In spite of this, she still maintained her womanhood. How could they not be surprised? Could Yunyang be so composed? Logically, when a man and a woman reached this stage, it would not be the woman who was unwilling, but the man who had a problem. However, Yunyang's other wife had already lost her virginity. Although it was not long ago, Yunyang would not have any problems as a man. What was going on with Jilingxi then? They were all smart people. No matter how surprised the Fox Empress and the others were, they did not voice it out, nor would they show it on their faces. They did not know that it was not that Jilingxi was unwilling, nor was it that Yunyang was unwilling, but there was a huge obstacle that they could not overcome. Feng Lingtian said. His teeth were yellow from smoking. He bought some foam toothpaste and brushed his teeth, and his mouth was full of blisters. Chapter 1462. There were not many people present, but the banquet was extremely sumptuous. The wine flowed like water as well. A few men drank while the women left early to find a place to chat. After a while, the martial saints of the Fox clan took their leave as well, leaving only the 3 brothers behind. Big brother, do you have any plans now that the situation has come to this? Yunyang asked. I've always prided myself on being resourceful, but facing the current situation, I really don't have any ideas. The Fox Emperor frowned, his heart heavy. Big brother, we're brothers. What can't we say to each other? With your intelligence, how can you really not have an idea? I just don't want to be the demon race's eternal sinner. Even if the demons betray me, I won't betray them. Yunyang smiled and said. The Fox Emperor heaved a long sigh. Hearing that, the cat ancestor's eyes widened. Fox, you actually have a way to deal with the current situation? There is a way indeed. But if I do that, the demon race will miss the only chance we have. We probably won't have any more chances to march into the bound of universe and conquer the human race. The Fox Emperor sighed and said, even if third brother is here, I'd say the same. The three of us are like-minded and have become brothers. However, humans and demons walk different paths after all. Our standpoints are different. Just like what third brother has said, even if demons betray me, I will not betray them. As a demon for a lifetime, one must have a bottom line. The cat ancestor rebuked him angrily. Don't talk about righteousness with me. Just tell me what idea you have. It's already a matter of life and death for the two races. And you still have to worry about this and that. Since when is the rise and fall of the demon race something you need to worry about? This idea of mine is only limited to thinking about it. It might work in theory at most, but if it's really implemented, the success rate is less than 1 in 10,000. There must be super experts guarding that place now. With the Phoenix Emperor's intelligence, how can he not think of this? The Fox Emperor looked melancholy. The cat ancestor panicked. Can't you just say it? Don't beat around the bush. Now that the world is in turmoil, the entire territory of the Fox clan has turned into a body of water. They might be attacked by the experts of the sea race or water race at any time. They're not making a move now because they're waiting for the right time. Once the time is right, they'll surely stir up a storm and set off a monstrous wave that will charge towards the Blood Soul Mountain. At that time, it's still unknown whether the Blood Soul Mountain will be breached, but our two great clans will bear the brunt of it, and it'll be difficult for us to escape the calamity of annihilation. Even in the best situation, I'm afraid only 1 in 10,000 would be able to struggle and survive. Cat ancestor's eyes were scarlet red. Our two great races, in addition to the other races that originally lived here, the total number of life forms is no less than 10 billion. That's tens of billions of lives we're talking about. Don't tell me you're going to remain indifferent? Most of them are your Fox clan's people. Fox Emperor murmured. Now that things have come to this, there's no turning back. If we can't break through the Blood Soul Mountain in one fell swoop, the monster clan will have trillions of people perish. If there's no way to vent the entire monster realm, other than the water race and sea race forces, all the other races will face a calamity of annihilation, Cat Ancestor said stubbornly. This calamity was incited by them in the first place. What does it have to do with me whether they die or not? I just want to protect my people. You just need to tell me your method. Don't say any other nonsense. If I'm not wrong, Fox Emperor said solemnly. For such a long time, the majority of the Saint Venerable and above battle strength of the various races have not shown themselves. The battle strength participating in the Battle of the Blood Soul Mountain seems to be much more frequent than in the past, but it's just a smokescreen for the frequent rotation. Right now, the total number of people participating in the Battle of the Blood Soul Mountain is less than 1/10,000th of the entire Monster Clan's experts. Then where have the other experts gone? The answer is obvious. Other than those who are guarding the headquarters of the various races, there's only one place they've gone to. Do you know where it is? Fox Emperor suddenly threw out a question. Cat Ancestor felt that he was confused by Fox Emperor. How would I know? I'm the one asking you. Why are you asking me instead? You should know, Fox Emperor said solemnly. As long as you think about it carefully, how could you not think of it? Why has there been torrential rain every single day this year? Why is the temperature so abnormal, rising by so much? Why is even the Blood Soul Mountain, a snow mountain that hasn't melted for millions of years, melting? All of this is a plan all premeditated. Fox Emperor's eyes were half closed as he said, if I'm not wrong, the interior of the other mountain ranges of the Monster Clan that are connected to the Blood Soul Mountain have all changed. Now, I'm afraid that all the volcanoes in the monster realm have been shifted to the surroundings of the Blood Soul Mountain. If not for this, why would the climate change to such an extent? Cat Ancestor was dumbfounded, clearly unable to keep up with Fox Emperor's train of thought. I think that the key to this situation isn't just the second. If I'm not wrong, the mountain ranges on the other side of the sea are also shifting over here, from a quantitative change to a qualitative change, forcefully suppressing the space, causing the flow of the sea to gradually shift over here. Perhaps there is a third or fourth reason, but I can't guess more than that. Cat Ancestor's eyes widen, both his hands were trembling. With his level of cultivation, how could he not know that it wasn't too difficult for a paragon-level cultivator to shift a mountain range? But even a peak paragon-level cultivator wouldn't be able to shift a very large mountain. But what if many paragons, or even monarchs, joined forces? The entire monster clan had hundreds of thousands of monarchs. What if there was even the help of half-sage powerhouses? To shift those mountain ranges that weren't reinforced by saint power was a huge project that required a lot of time and effort. It was difficult, but it wasn't impossible. They didn't do it before because no one had thought of it, and even if they had thought of it, no one had the authority to make such a big move. But if the Phoenix Emperor came up with this plan, then it would be a completely different matter. The Phoenix Emperor was the only monster below the Monster Emperor that had such authority and such boldness. Now that I think about it, the high-level monster cultivators belonging to the Phoenix clan have rarely appeared on the monster continent since 50-100 years ago. What did they go to do? The Fox Emperor said coldly. The Phoenix Emperor has never placed all his hopes on a single plan. No matter how perfect the plan is, the Phoenix Emperor has to hold back in case of unexpected changes. I can almost say with certainty that the Phoenix clan had already started this plan from 50-100 years ago, but they were moving on the other side of the sea. Other than the sea, it was a barren land where humans and animals couldn't survive, so we didn't notice them at all. In total, it took about 5,000 years. With all the experts of the Phoenix clan working together, how far could they shift that mountain range over here? Even if it's the most conservative guess, it must be tens of thousands of miles. Shifting these tens of thousands of miles of mountains over is enough to lock down the direction of the sea. At the same time, the snow mountains on the other side of the sea began to melt, and the snow water flowed into the sea. After that, the sea could only expand to the other side. If the surroundings are also undergoing similar shifts, it's obvious that the sea will only expand to our side, which is the direction of the Blood Soul Mountain. Although this is the stupidest method and consumes a lot of time and energy, as long as we put in enough effort, it's the most effective method. Although we didn't notice it all these years, we know that the sea is gradually expanding year by year. Back then, in order to stop the expansion of the sea, we often went out to fight. Of course I remember. The Cat Ancestor nodded. At that time, it was practically a fight for every inch of land. The Fox Emperor said indifferently. Until today, it has already been over 10,000 years since there was such a fight between land and sea. Wherever the sea expands, the land demon race will retreat to where there are no more conflicts. The sea demon race is getting stronger and stronger, and the unbridled expansion of the sea, isn't that what they once dreamed of? Or to the sea demon race, the sea drowning the entire bound of heaven-earth, that is what they hope to see the most. The sea demon race will not consider how the land demon race will survive. And the Phoenix Emperor's plan can be said to be in harmony with the sea demon race's upper echelons. They will only agree, and definitely won't oppose it. But what if the water can't break through the Bloody Soul Mountain? Not just the ordinary demon race, even those great demons and great demons, as well as the upper echelons of the land demon race, will all perish in the hands of the sea demon race sooner or later. Because at that stage, the demon territory will already rarely have land, and everything will be turned into the sea. When the Cat Ancestor thought of that scene, he couldn't help but shudder. Chapter 1463. The Fox Emperor was not wrong at all. Even if one's cultivation base was already at the pinnacle of Saint Realm, and was only one step away from entering the galaxy, one was still not a stellar cultivator. One could not leave. Even if one's cultivation base was exceedingly high, one could only survive in the tiny space at the top of the mountain, curled up and struggling at death's door. It was all ocean below. The sea race could exhaust one to death, unless one surrendered to the human race and went to the Blood Soul Mountain. But could the human race accept the surrender of a high-level demon? If a demon expert like himself, or the Fox Emperor, were to go to the bound of universe, what kind of damage could he cause? It would be an unimaginably terrifying scene. Even if the human race gathered all of its experts, they might not be able to find and kill an emperor-level demon in the vast bound of universe. An existence at his level could already hide his aura perfectly. Even a pinnacle saint would not be able to find him when he came out. The human race would never allow such a threat to exist. If that's the case, we have nowhere to go. Aren't we doomed? Cat Ancestor asked blankly. Yes, we have nowhere to go. We're doomed. The Fox Emperor gave an affirmative answer without hesitation. Yin Yang said from the side. It's not that there's no turning back. Water has its limits. Oh, no matter how vast the water is, it still has its limits. When the snow on the other side melts, it might be able to invade many areas of the demonic realm, but it might not be able to take over the entire demonic realm's interior. Water might not only exist in the ocean. The water on the ground evaporates into vapor and rises to the sky, turning into rain and snow to descend upon the human realm. The cycle repeats itself. In other words, such water doesn't appear out of thin air. What the Phoenix Emperor has done so far is only compressing space and moving mountains and oceans away. Yun Yang said, From what I see, if the plan doesn't work, as long as the experts of the demonic race move together and move the mountains away, the water won't flow in reverse. Big Brother's plan to wipe out the entire demonic race isn't absolute. The Fox Emperor's eyes shone. Yes, there's still this change, Cat Ancestor said listlessly. Don't be too optimistic. The Phoenix clan has mobilized all the elite warriors of the clan. It has been 5,000 years. Even if all the best cultivators of the entire demon clan join hands and move the mountains back to their original positions, it will still take a long time. How many demons will die in this disaster? The most conservative and optimistic estimate is that tens of billions or even hundreds of billions of casualties are inevitable. Yun Yang said, The Phoenix Emperor's plan is indeed feasible after a detailed analysis. Even if it did not succeed, the demon clan would lose many demons in this operation, but most of them were ordinary demons. The remaining ones were all elites. The resources that were originally shared by hundreds of billions of people will be occupied by the remaining elites. The foundation of the demon clan may not be damaged much. Perhaps there is a chance that it will not be damaged, but will increase. At the very least, the demon clan will retain the capital to stage a comeback. I have to admit that the Phoenix Emperor is truly a formidable character. You can attack if you want to advance or retreat if you want to. Every move you make is a foundation that has been developed for hundreds of thousands of years. The Fox Emperor said bitterly. It's just that his heart is a little too vicious. It's still too early to talk about this. What we need to know most urgently is what the Phoenix Emperor's trump card is. Yun Yang's face was dark as he said, Why don't we move a few mountains first and test the Phoenix Emperor's confidence? As long as you guys move, I think the Phoenix Emperor will definitely do something to you guys. The two demon sovereigns were moved at the same time, hesitation creeping into their faces. Yun Yang's gaze flickered as he said, Elder brothers, do you wish for the Phoenix Emperor's plan to succeed, or do you wish for it to fail? The two demon race sovereigns wanted to say something but hesitated. Their expressions were extremely conflicted. They were enemies with the Dragon Sovereign and Phoenix Sovereign, but deep down, they were still demons. The demon clan had sacrificed so much to carry out such a plan. If it succeeded, the bound of universe's doors would open, and the millennia of domination would be within reach. To the entire demon clan, it would be a great opportunity that they would not encounter in hundreds of thousands of years. Strictly speaking, or perhaps it was the demon's innate nature, there should be hope for it to succeed. However, if this plan succeeded, it would mean that they would have to be buried along with it. It would not be just the two of them, but the annihilation of two tribes. Thinking about it, they did not wish for this plan to succeed. Therefore, in their hearts, it could be said that they were extremely conflicted. They did not want the Phoenix Emperor to succeed, but they did not want the Phoenix Emperor to fail either. Yun Yang's question had conflicted the two demon sovereigns to the point where they wanted to commit suicide. Seeing that the two sovereigns were silent, Yun Yang could not help sighing. He understood the feelings of his two sworn brothers very well. It was difficult to satisfy both sides, and they could not advance or retreat, so he did not force them. How about this? You don't have to do anything. Let me sneak over to take a look and act according to the situation. Yun Yang said, I can't be at ease if I don't understand the Phoenix Emperor's final plan. After all, this is not only about the survival of the Fox clan and the Cat clan, but also the well-being of the bound of universe. If it's only volcanoes, earthquakes, and waves that can be imagined, it's useless to the Bloody Soul Mountain now. It's just a waste of effort. Yun Yang frowned and said, Still, I'm very interested to know what the Phoenix Emperor's trump card is. The Fox Emperor heaved a sigh of relief and said, You go over alone. Be careful. No, I'll bring your sister-in-law along. The three of us will go over. Yun Yang smiled and said, I'll go take a good look and see what exactly is going on. Watching Yun Yang leave, the Fox Emperor and the Cat ancestors' expressions grew increasingly grim. Look, with Yun Yang's current cultivation base level, how does he compare to the Phoenix Emperor and Dragon Emperor? The Cat ancestor asked in a low voice. The Fox Emperor pondered. After a long time he said, Usually when we travel outside, we leave our spiritual essence in a secret place to cultivate. Whether it's our combat power, or the level of our deific consciousness, it's only at the level of a 3rd or 4th grade Saint Emperor. Once fused and unleashed with full force, we can reach the level of an intermediate saint. Such a cultivation base is naturally inferior to Yun Yang's, even inferior to his 2 wives. However, both of our cultivation bases are more focused on arcane skills and ways to preserve our lives. Therefore, we're only above average among the demon race's sovereigns. Perhaps we're in the upper echelon, but we're definitely not among the top few. Whether it's the Tiger Emperor, Rock Emperor, or Falcon Emperor, their extreme combat power is above ours. The strongest among them is still the Phoenix Emperor and the Dragon Emperor. As far as I know, the Dragon Emperor has always been cultivating the Great Separation technique. If I'm not wrong, he should have 5 clones by now. He's about to break through from the half-saint realm to the saint realm. And this was only limited to the time when he rescued you that day. Another 2 years have passed. I wonder if he has made another breakthrough. Whether it's the Phoenix Emperor's Nirvana art, or the Dragon Emperor's Great Separation art, they're both the best cultivation methods in this world, rarely seen. The Foxy Emperor shook his head and said, I estimate that Yun Yang's current cultivation base can at least be ranked among the top 6 in the bound of universe, but he'll only be 6th. He's probably still not the Dragon Emperor or the Phoenix Emperor's opponent. If he meets the Dragon Emperor in his complete form, he can still fight. But if he meets the Phoenix Emperor at his limit, his life will still be in danger. He's definitely not his opponent. Then you. The Cat ancestor frowned. What he meant was, then why do you approve of him taking the risk? There are too many examples that tell us that he's the child of miracles. Nothing is impossible for him. The Phoenix Emperor's plan is too vicious. If we don't figure out his trump card, both our races will be the first to bear the brunt, and it'll be hard for us to escape. The human race will suffer as well. Therefore, Yun Yang will definitely go this time. Even if we stop him, he'll still go. Even if he's unfortunately discovered by the Phoenix Emperor, with the combined combat power of Yun Yang's 2 confidants. Even if he can't defeat the Phoenix Emperor, he can still retreat in one piece. This attempt is the only chance that I've found after much deliberation that can save us from this perilous situation. Therefore, not only can I not stop him, I have to facilitate it. This plan doesn't only concern the people of the Fox clan and the Cat clan. It concerns the destiny of the entire demon race. It's the lives of hundreds of billions of living beings. The Fox Emperor sighed into the sky. The Phoenix Emperor's plan is too vicious, too vicious. Even if he succeeds and invades the bound of universe, there will still be countless lives lost. How can the living be innocent? How can the living be innocent? I only hope that Yin Yang can succeed, or at least find some clues, even if the price is to delay the demon race's counterattack on the bound of universe indefinitely. The Fox Emperor's sigh sounded like he was about to cry blood. It was heart-wrenching. Yin Yang sped under the thick clouds, locking down the waters beneath him with his deific consciousness as he advanced. You're going in the wrong direction, Ji Lingxi reminded him. Aren't we going inland to look for the Phoenix Emperor? Yin Yang replied. The demon realm is vast, and we're not familiar with the place. We won't be able to find the Phoenix Emperor if we were to intentionally look for her. Why don't we go to the border and create some commotion? The Phoenix Emperor will naturally come to us. After sprinting for 1,000 miles, they could already see countless powerful marine creatures stirring up waves in the water. Giant fish that were thousands of feet long, pythons, squids, and all sorts of marine creatures could be seen everywhere. Along the way, they saw many demons on land, crouching and trembling on the small islands that were exposed above the water's surface. Suddenly, a wave came and countless tentacles stretched out from the water's surface, sucking the demons into the depths of the water. Not even a ripple could be seen. Silence ensued. There were also many flying demons flying in panic in the air, but it was not safe either. From time to time, a giant fish would rise from the water's surface and open its mouth, swallowing those flying demons into its stomach. The water was still growing. Moments ago, they discovered a small island that was dozens of miles in circumference above the surface of the water. It was densely packed with demonic beasts. However, a gust of wind blew, and countless underwater demonic beasts rushed out of the water with a loud boom. The waves parted, and after a series of cries, the tens of thousands of demons on the island were all gone. Not a single one was left. Not a trace of life could be seen. Only countless large fish and long snakes could be seen scuttling back and forth under the water's surface, fighting for food. A water arrow soared thousands of feet into the sky from afar and hit a flying rock. The rock shrieked and lost its balance, plummeting to the ground. It flapped its wings with all its might, trying to return to the sky, but a giant fish that was 10,000 feet long shot up from the water's surface, whipping the rock into the water's surface with its tail. When the big fish fell into the water splashed up like a small mountain, showing the momentum of the waves reaching the heavens. It was a spectacular sight. In spite of this, Yin Yang and the two ladies had seen similar situations many times before, so it was no longer a rare sight. That's horrible. The rock's cultivation base seemed to be at the level of a Saint King, but it fell in an instant. This, Ji Lingxi stared blankly. It's horrible. Shengguan Lingxiu could not stop sighing. As a military general, Shengguan Lingxiu was already a valiant warrior who oversaw life and death. She was even hostile to the demon race, but she could not help but lament at the sight of the flood and the marine race's massacre. The three of them had not been flying for long, but they had already seen hundreds of thousands of demons on land being dragged into the water by the marine race, reduced to food. Horrible? Not really far from it. Yin Yang said coldly. If the Phoenix Sovereign's plan succeeds, then what you're seeing now will happen in the bound of universe. The ones wailing on these islands will be human citizens. Do you think the human Saint King cultivators will end up better than the rock Saint King in such a situation? Both Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu stared blankly, shuddering at the thought of this horrifying yet highly probable outcome. They were still shaken by the lingering fear in their hearts. Far in front of them, a white line was approaching them from afar. It was getting closer and closer. Yin Yang and the other two stared at it, only to see that it was a gigantic wave that was approaching them. The wave was moving faster and faster, with countless marine creatures leaping and jumping behind it. By the time it got closer, it was already thousands of feet high, and each wave was higher than the one before it, advancing towards them. The small islands that were originally floating on the surface of the water had all turned into reefs under the ravaging of the huge waves. It looks like the marine race is already pushing hard in this direction. Yin Yang sighed softly. I'm afraid the Phoenix Sovereign's plan isn't to conquer the bound of universe, but to destroy the world. The three of them did not linger, advancing towards the wave at full speed. Along the way, Xiaochen tore through space 3 times before he finally saw his destination. On the other side of the vast water, there were many mountains standing majestically like dams. On top of each mountain, there was a demon expert standing with his arms behind his back. The wind howled. Yin Yang summoned the power of wind and cloud, whistling over. A tiger demon on top of the mountain lifted his head abruptly and let out a howl. The demon experts on the surrounding mountains howled in unison. Who is it? Yin Yang sneered. You're indeed from the demon race. You have the heart of a beast and the nature of a beast. Watching your own kin being mercilessly devoured by the marine race, yet you're actually unmoved. This heart of a demon. Feeding your own kin to the marine race with your own hands. How does it feel? Do you enjoy it? On top of the mountain, a hint of shame flashed across the face of a tiger demon, whose fur was like gold. He then bellowed in rage. Human? Why are you here? Go. Yin Yang snorted coldly, the saber light in his hand flashing brilliantly. The dazzling saber light tore through thousands of feet of sky, splitting the thick layers of clouds. The first form of Destiny Blade, Merciless Saber and Merciless Tao, appeared once again. Chapter 1464. With a soft crack, the tiger demon, that was the first to bear the brunt of the attack, had its golden staff split into 2. Its body was torn apart in the air, as if it had been hit by a massive explosion, dying without a complete corpse. Almost at the same time, a flash of green light flashed past. Emmy had retrieved the tiger demon's soul at once, while the remaining Dantian was kept into his spatial ring with a wave of his hand. When the other 7 to 8 demons saw that the tiger demon had been annihilated, they roared in unison and pounced over without a care for their own safety. Yin Yang turned into a rainbow, enveloped in a magnificent saber light, as he crashed into the demons and began the massacre. The saber light exploded in all directions, and the 8 holy monarch demonic beasts were sent flying in 8 different directions. Then they exploded and died just like the tiger demon. Blood rained down from the sky, another green shadow flashed, and another 8 inner cores flashed through the air before disappearing. Destiny's first form, 1 strike and 2 strikes, had killed 9 Saint Lords of the demon race. None of them survived. The other experts of the demon race, who were watching from afar, were frightened out of their wits when they saw the scene. They sprung up and fled, howling to warn the others as they fled. Yin Yang appeared in a flash and stood at the peak of the mountain, his gaze focused on the other side. On the other side of the mountain, it was a murky landscape, barren as far as the eye could see. Yin Yang could clearly feel the presence of an unimaginable restrictive force on the other side, isolating the mountain peak from the other side's spiritual qi. There was still life on this side, but the other side was filled with the air of death. Yin Yang snorted angrily and leaped into the air. His body turned into 100,000 feet tall giant as he stretched out his hand to grab the mountain peak. Channeling his unparalleled mystical qi, he forcefully seeped it into the mountain. With a loud boom, he uprooted the mountain that was thousands of feet tall like he was plucking garlic and flung it far away. With a loud boom, heaven and earth shook and the sun and moon lost their light. However, the seawater had also found another opening. Like a ferocious tiger released from its cage, it rushed out from the newly created opening with a loud boom. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh! Countless experts of the Sea Clan leaped out of the turbulent seawater, shouting furiously. Who is it? Who's causing trouble? Phoenix Emperor, didn't you say that we're already allies? Why is there a gap here? Yin Yang said coldly in midair. Since we're allies, why do you want to harm the demon race's people on land? He raised his voice and bellowed. Back then, we had an agreement to form an alliance, to be of the same breath and branches, to spread the traces of the demon race throughout the entire bound of universe. But now, the reality is that you people have been devouring the demon race's people on the land, using them as food. All of this is because of your unscrupulous and deranged actions. I'll crush all of you into pieces. never to be reincarnated. The seawater rippled, and a voice said with a hideous smile, "Open the sea. The waves will cover the world. The water will spread all over the mysterious yellow. The demon world will last for thousands of generations." The sea tribe has helped the demon tribe to pacify the mysterious yellow world and contributed greatly. Why is the demon tribe on the land not willing to pay such a small price? Thousands of black silhouettes, gigantic fishes, prawns and other marine creatures leaped out one after another, glaring at Yun Yang maliciously. Yun Yang was fearless as he howled. "What nonsense and sophistry! Do you think the wolf clan is a pushover?" Rays of light flashed, turning countless members of the sea tribe into corpses. Under the turbulent sea, streams of water flowed back and forth. Informed the emperor, "There are demon experts causing trouble here. Send experts to suppress them quickly." Then many silhouettes of the sea tribe arrived one after another, attacking the giant wolf that Yun Yang had transformed into. Ji Lingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu did not join the battle, devoting themselves to either destroying or moving the mountains that were blocking the seawater. With the two ladies' current cultivation base and abilities, moving mountains and filling the sea was a piece of cake. However, a few mountains were no longer in their original positions, and the amount of water leaking out was much greater than before. As for the giant wolf that Yun Yang had transformed into, he flew in the sky above the sea, unstoppable. None of the marine creatures that had charged out of the water were mercilessly killed by him. Indeed, all the marine creatures that had charged out of the water were either dead or injured. None of them were injured enough to survive and return alive. Despicable wolf clan, how ambitious of them! A voice bellowed, "Is that the wolf emperor up there personally?" The one-sided slaughter caused the sea clan to be shocked, and throughout the entire wolf clan, there were only a few who possessed such a cultivation. Moreover, every single one of them was a member of the upper echelons of the clan. Moreover, from the analysis of the words from before, this person was most likely the Lang Huang himself. Yun Yang chuckled coldly. "The original intention of our cooperation is to benefit both parties, to take what we need. You have devoured my people unscrupulously, so you shall bear my wrath." Without further ado, he continued to attack. His movements were even faster, like the wind and lightning, as if he was flying. The silhouette of the wolf swept past. Although there were countless saber glints, sword shadows, spears, and rain, the shadows of various weapons intertwined in the air, there were only countless corpses of the sea tribe that floated on the surface of the water. Seeing that the situation was getting worse and worse, the sea tribe was naturally enraged. More and more experts of the sea tribe rushed out of the water to protest. The alliance was initiated by the Phoenix sovereign of the demon race. Both sides have only just reached an agreement. Is the Wolf Emperor trying to tear up the agreement by slaughtering so recklessly? Yin Yang turned a deaf ear to them, and did not reply. His attacks only grew fiercer, killing those that came out. He was ruthless and merciless. Gradually, the killing of the sea demons became secondary. The method of stripping the inner core that was hidden underwater was revealed, no longer concealed. He skinned, broke the bones, and cleaned up the flesh. He did not even let go of the fish tails that did not have any. The demon race knew that the fish tail was not a good thing. There were too many small thorns, almost similar to chicken ribs. It would be a pity to discard it if it had no flesh. However, in the Bound of Universe's human cookbooks, it had another name of leeching. It was probably because it was the source of the fish's energy. Its meat was the smoothest and most tender. As long as the small thorns were removed, it would become an excellent ingredient. This was what little fatty Qian Duo had shared with Yin Yang. When the sea race saw this scene, they were all enraged and rushed out one after another. Yin Yang held the invisible saber in his hand, still in the form of a giant wolf, charging back and forth among the sea tribe. With a casual swing of his saber, at least 5 to 6 members of the sea tribe lost their lives. His saber was swift and merciless. Blood rained and dyed the sea red. Countless heads of the sea tribe flew into the sky, due to the decapitation of their bodies. It was a delightful killing. The sea tribe was enraged. This wolf demon was simply unreasonable. The collaboration between our two races was suggested by your higher-ups. It could be said that you have a favor to ask of the sea tribe. Of course, we should be allowed to take advantage of it. Now you're killing us here and thwarting the grand plan. Damn you! What's more, you're killing everything. Yet you want to take their internal cores, skin them, and scrape their bones. You don't even let go of the fish tails that no one wants. Isn't this too immoral? If it was only eating, the sea tribe might have believed that their demons had gone overboard and devoured too many demons from the land, causing the other party to retaliate in anger. However, the 2 female wolf demons that were with the giant wolf were actually moving the mountains continuously and efficiently. This was a huge problem. The giant wolf demon had already displayed an extremely terrifying cultivation and strength, but the strength of the 2 female demon wolves was not the slightest bit inferior. Moving and even destroying the mountain was as easy and effortless to them. Now a huge gap of tens of thousands of feet had been formed, and more water was seeping out through the gap. The originally good situation had been greatly destroyed. Although the sea demons intended to stop them, the giant wolf demon in front of them was blocking the way alone. No matter how many sea demons there were, they could not rush over and stop the 2 female wolf demons from moving the mountains. Watching the mountains that were originally guiding the flow of the waterway being moved one by one, the water that they had painstakingly gathered pouring out like a river towards the netherworld of death, the sea tribe was driven mad. As time passed, more and more experts of the sea tribe rushed over from afar. Before they could gain a stable footing, they charged into the battlefield to snipe the giant wolf. It was a pity that they were not strong enough to stop the wolf. Soon, they were turned into lumps of flesh and blood that fell into the water and flowed out of the gap. Boundless spiritual energy, countless internal cores, and the flesh and blood of the sea tribe had all become yin-yang spoils of war. However, as more and more members of the sea tribe rushed over from afar, the ocean within a 1,000-mile radius was filled with them. Gradually, experts at the level of Saint Venerables and holy monarchs appeared on the sea tribe's side. All sorts of attacks rained down on Yunyang, like a giant wave that was about to devour the heavens and counterattack. If Yunyang's cultivation base was only at the beginner level of a saint, he would be able to hold on. But it was impossible for him to continue his rampage. As the saying went, ants could bite an elephant to death when there were enough of them. Among the attacking sea tribe, there were species like the golden fish king that Yunyang had encountered the other day. The roars they released were aimed directly at the target's soul, and they attacked as a group. Their power was not to be underestimated. However, Yunyang's current cultivation base was almost unparalleled in the world. His deific consciousness was especially strong, and he was no longer afraid of any deific consciousness attack in this world. Although the sea tribe had many members, and their attack patterns were complicated, they were still physical bodies after all. Attacks on deific consciousness were completely useless before Yunyang's absolute strength. Yunyang brandished the concealed divine edge to his heart's content. One sweep, and another 100,000 feet. He moved and returned like a shooting star, going back and forth. Wherever he passed, blood sprayed in droves, like a bridge of crimson rainbows, drawing a ghastly arc in the air. Coming and going and going back, there were at least thousands of strange heads of the Sea clan that flew up, along with thousands of inner cores. However, Yunyang did not have to do anything about it, as Emmy would do its best to collect all of them. As the massacre continued, countless invisible and intangible karmic chi melted into Yunyang's body like moths to a flame, allowing his endless divine art, which had been stagnant recently, to improve bit by bit. Suddenly, the sea in the distance parted. A tentacle that was tens of thousands of feet long soared into the sky like a bolt of lightning, charging towards where Yunyang was. However, before it could get close, the saber light flashed again, and the giant tentacle was split into two. With a roar, a humongous octopus burst out of the water. The length of the tentacle was almost 100,000 feet long. It was a gigantic sea demon that Yunyang had never seen before. Judging by its size, it was comparable to a mountain range. Leaping into the air, the octopus asked sternly, "Which emperor of the demon race is it in front of us?" Are you trying to obstruct the cooperation between the two races by acting so recklessly? Without a shred of doubt, the Sea tribe was convinced that the fellow blocking their way must be an emperor. Perhaps it was the Wolf Emperor himself. If he was not an emperor, how could he have such a strong combat power? The giant octopus hovered in the air, its massive body almost turning the entire sky black. Yun Yang raised his head and hollered, "The premise of the cooperation between the two races is mutual benefit. Is there any written permission for you to slaughter my people? You should have considered the possibility of being slaughtered by my race when you treated my people as food. What kind of cooperation are you talking about now? How laughable and shameful." The giant octopus sneered, "My race devours all obstacles. This is the basis of cooperation that was agreed upon at the beginning of the cooperation. You wolf demon, are you trying to rebel by ruining the cooperation between both parties?" Yin Yang hollered, "The Sea tribe treats my people as food and has forced us into a dead end. So what if I rebel when I have no way out?" Raising his saber, the octopus' injuries worsened. Seeing this, the giant octopus was furious. It opened its mouth and sprayed ink everywhere. Immediately, the sky within 1,000 miles was dyed black. The stinky black gas was still there, spreading like dark clouds. For a moment, it was hard to see, and one couldn't even see their own fingers. Many of the members of the Sea race, who didn't manage to hide in the water in time, let out miserable screams. Strange pustules appeared all over their bodies, and when the pustules burst, they all died a violent death. And the countless members of the Sea race who died all turned into black smoke that didn't dissipate for a long time, matching the color of the sky. The inky black gas was indeed domineering. Not only did countless sea demons die when they came into contact with it, even their internal cores were melted. It was enough to show the ferocity of its toxicity. It was appalling and intimidating. The octopus was hidden in the thick black air, its countless tentacles wrapping themselves around Yun Yang in a violent, yet strangely silent manner. Yun Yang howled, What is this?" However, his voice was no longer as angry as before. It was tinged with fear as if he had been poisoned. The octopus guffawed. "Die! Damn you wolf demon! Die for the countless Sea tribe's sons." The tentacles wrapped around Yun Yang without any reservations, intent on killing him without holding back. However, amidst the deadly darkness, the saber light shone like a blazing sun, illuminating the world. The giant octopus exclaimed, "You!" Scraping sounds could be heard continuously, like a blunt knife cutting through cowhide. The giant octopus's cries were earth-shattering, but they only lasted for a moment before silence ensued. The sound of heavy objects falling could be heard coming from the sea below. It was the sound of the giant octopus's body being chopped into pieces by Yin Yang's saber. The mighty giant octopus demon had been annihilated just like that. It had perished. Chapter 1465. The black cloud created by the giant octopus was clearly still spreading, still extending, and its lethality had not decreased at all. However, it had already turned into countless pieces of minced meat. Yun Yang picked a few pieces in the air where the meat was juicier, and kept them in his pouch. This was an excellent ingredient. Thanks to Little Fatty's teachings, Yun Yang had recently become more interested in delicacies. The saint that Yun Yang had dismembered was actually only a beginner-level demonic beast. Its entire body could be said to be a top-notch treasure. Even a piece of its skin was filled with spiritual qi, and greatly beneficial to one's cultivation base. However, Yun Yang guessed that something better would come soon, so he kept a few of the best parts. Although Yun Yang had dismembered tens of thousands of sea monsters previously, he had only chosen relatively rare parts. Other than that, he did not even touch the flesh and bones of the supreme saint-level sea monsters. Now that his status had risen, he had to pay attention to his basic necessities. Fish tails, for example, were the best delicacies on the dining table, as long as they were properly prepared. With a wave of Yin Yang's hand, a strong gust of wind blew over and blew away the dark clouds. The sky was clear once more, without a cloud in sight. As the inky black gas dissipated, waves surged again on the surface of the sea, but more sea demons swarmed over. At this time, the ones with the big heads were mini whale warriors in human form. Their bodies were abnormally huge, and each of them was no smaller than the giant octopus from before. All of them held shining three-pronged pitchforks in their hands and came in a line. In the middle were walruses, seals, sea lions. There were all kinds of strange creatures of all shapes and sizes, and they gathered together. A moment later, a single-horned flood dragon emerged from the crowd and somersaulted in the water, turning into a middle-aged man wearing a crown and a royal robe. He walked out with his hands behind his back and stared at Yin Yang for a moment before calling out loudly, "Wolf demon, come down!" The voice sounded authoritative, but the condescending attitude was not concealed at all. "Who are you? How dare you shout at me like this?" Yin Yang asked in a low voice. "I am His Majesty the Sea Emperor's Left General Jiao San," the single-horned flood dragon said in a dignified manner. "You demon wolf, what do you want from me?" Yin Yang picked his ear. "You're not a human pedant. Why are you pretending to be a cultured person and putting on such a scholarly act? You're a tiger, but you're a dog instead. Give me a straightforward answer if you're going to beat me up. If you're going to beat me up, come up here and accept your death." A cold smile appeared on Jiao San's face. "I originally didn't want to lose a great general under the Siren Emperor, and wanted to give you a chance to live. However, since you are so stubborn," with a wave of his hand he commanded, "kill him." Dozens of whale warriors soared into the sky at the same time. They were like dozens of mountains pressing down on him at the same time. Yin Yang sighed softly. The whale warriors attacking in their human forms were nothing to Yin Yang. "If all of you revert to your true forms, perhaps I'll look even more spectacular." As the saber glinted, the whale warriors returned to their true forms. They turned into their true forms and floated on the surface of the sea. Other than their inner cores, which Emi had taken away, Yin Yang was not interested in the rest of them. According to Qian Duoduo, the whale's body was too fat, making it difficult to cook delicacies. It was most suitable for people who had not tasted meat for a long time. Watching the dozens of whale warriors perish, dismembered and dismembered, Jiao San's gaze turned serious. A saint's cultivation base? Yin Yang did not give Jiao San any time to speak. He rushed to him like a flash of lightning. Yin Yang's movements were too fast for Jiao San to react at all. Yin Yang grabbed him by the neck and lifted him into the air. General Jiao San, who had been arrogant and haughty just now, was now being lifted by the neck by Yin Yang like a dead snake. Yin Yang exerted force and Jiao San's bones shifted. His entire body went limp, and he reverted to his true form with a burp from his neck. However, he did not look like a flood dragon at all. He looked more like a dead snake and begged, "Spare me, my king." It was a pity that he only managed to utter the first few words before Yin Yang knocked him out with a punch. Swoosh, 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 Yin Yang pulled out a few dragon tendons from his body. All the sea demons who witnessed this scene were dumbfounded. Lord Jiao San. He was subdued and his dragon tendons were pulled out. Oh my god! Unfortunately, it was not the climax yet, as the show was yet to come. Yin Yang seemed to weigh it with his hand, and immediately slit its throat, ending its life completely. He then dispersed its spiritual energy, before stuffing its entire body into his spatial ring. Although this demonic dragon is only a 4th-level saint, it's still a dragon, so I'll keep it. That fellow Qian Duo praised the dragon's meat for being delicious, leaving a lingering fragrance on one's teeth and cheeks. As his boss, how can I let him have all the praise? I'll definitely hold a dragon feast in the future, and make him die of envy. It was for this reason that Yin Yang kept the entire dragon in his spatial ring. After a moment of silence, there was another uproar. Seeing that General Jiao San was dead, and the dragon's body had been taken away by the person before them, countless sea demons knew that they were in trouble. They spun on the surface of the water in an attempt to escape. It was a pity that Yin Yang's saber swung, and displayed his true ability this time. The area within a 3,000-mile radius was completely sealed. With a single slash, the heads of hundreds of thousands of sea demons in the area flew into the air, and were sent to the underworld together. As a large number of souls were destroyed, Many of the inner cores that had appeared were also swept away by Emmy as they glowed at the same time. Behind Yun Yang, Jilingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu were still moving the mountains. Those that were easy to move were easily tossed aside, as long as they were moved away from the main route. As for those that were especially sturdy, they were smashed with a single punch. Hence, there were occasional explosions of rocks that flew for thousands of miles. As Yun Yang eliminated the enemy with a single slash, there were no longer any demons within a 1,000-mile radius. The sea seemed exceptionally calm for a moment. It was a pity that the peace only lasted for a short while. A ripple appeared in the air, and with a swoosh, a crack appeared in the space. Someone tore through the space and rushed over. After a few swoosh sounds, a few fiery red phoenixes appeared on the scene. Before both parties could speak, more swoosh sounds were heard. The Golden Dragon Clan and the Black Dragon Clan had arrived. After a while, the clouds in the sky changed. Emperor Rock, who was like a cloud that hung from the sky, arrived before Yun Yang in 2 flashes. Then, golden light flickered on the surface of the sea as hundreds of silhouettes appeared. They were the true higher-ups of the Neptune clan, and each of them wore a grim expression. The leaders of the Neptune clan were a few humanoid dragons, their bodies glowing with a holy white light as they came on the waves. Sensing the arrival of Saint Masters, the Saint Masters of the demonic race, be it on land or sea, had all come personally as proof. With a long howl from Yun Yang, Jilingxi and Shengguan Lingxiu immediately stopped their destructive actions and returned to his side. Not only were there a large number of enemies, but their abilities were also incomparable to the demons from before. If the 3 of them were to remain scattered, they might be defeated one by one. That would be disastrous. A wolf's howl rang out from afar as the space shattered like glass once more. Dozens of gigantic wolf demons appeared, and the one leading them was none other than the Wolf Emperor. As soon as it appeared, its murderous eyes locked onto Yun Yang. After observing him for a while, it bellowed angrily, "No, you don't belong to the Wolf Clan. Damn thing, who are you? How dare you impersonate a demon of our clan?" Yun Yang was not in the mood to bicker with the alpha wolf. He had just realized something frightening. The disparity between the top-notch combat power of the Bound of Universe and the demon race was so great. The highest leader had yet to appear, but there were already more than 20 saint-level experts gathered here. At this moment, a total of 27 saint-level experts from the demon race's sea, land, and air forces joined forces and surrounded Yun Yang and the other 2. In the next moment, the sound of swords and sabers slicing through the air rang out. The force of fists and palms overflowed. The battle of encirclement had begun. Yun Yang and the other 2 were besieged and the situation was dire, but none of the 3 of them were in a hurry. The first contact between the 2 sides, the result of the first collision between the saint-level combat power, shocked the demon race's saint experts. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. The demons were powerful. Yun Yang and the other 2, who were at a disadvantage, did not think about defending themselves, but attacked with brute force instead. Yun Yang unleashed the first 6 and 12 styles of Destiny Blade's first 6 styles like a thunderstorm. Then he followed it up with What Harm Is There in Slaughtering the World. The force of the saber and sword filled the heaven and earth, like a laser beam that flowed from heaven to earth, piercing through the entire space. As the saber and sword converged, the 2 famous styles were unleashed one after another. The result was exceptionally fruitful. The 27 saint experts on the other side had endured the impact of the saber and sword energy. 8 of them were severely injured, and one of them had his heart pierced by Yin Yang's saber. Countless saber energy exploded at the vital spot on his chest. Immediately, the demon saint's body shattered like a bomb. If it had been any other cultivator below the level of saint, they would have definitely died in the face of such injuries. However, as a white light flashed in the air, the demon saint who had his body shattered reappeared. Although his face was pale and his gaze was filled with fear, he was still alive and had not truly died. The other saints who were severely injured, had their legs or arms broken, had recovered in an instant. The others who only had superficial injuries were even less of a problem. Emperor Rock roared when he saw Yin Yang's might. With a clang, his claws collided with Yin Yang's saber head-on. With a loud bang, countless members of the sea tribe within a 1,000-mile radius floated on the surface of the water, their bellies turned upside down. However, Yin Yang's resolute saber, which had always been indestructible and indestructible, did not manage to sever his claws. Instead, it was forcefully blocked. It was also because of Emperor Rock's obstruction that Yin Yang's attack did not hurt many people. After all, Yin Yang's intention to perform the convergence of saber and sword was to cripple all these fellows in front of him. After all, these were Saint Realm experts. Although they were Saint Realm experts, their actual abilities were much weaker than top-notch Saint Realm experts. Yin Yang's full-powered slash could, of course, teach them a lesson that would last for life. Even if he could not kill them, he wanted to leave an internal demon in their hearts that they would never be able to match up to Yin Yang. However, it was restrained by Emperor Rock. The two of them retreated and looked at each other. They could feel each other's strength, and a sense of caution rose in their hearts. When the 27 experts of the demon race formed an encirclement again, their expressions were extremely solemn. Obviously, everyone knew that this fellow in front of them was the strongest enemy they had ever seen in their lives. He was not someone that anyone present could fight against. Even though sages were undying and indestructible, if they were to face this human one-on-one, they might really be crushed by him and perish. He was a terrifying enemy that they had never seen before. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.